want to do cocaine, you want to do heroin, you believe the devil, you want to. I think you should do all those things.
I'm thinking just by the way you think though, you're more structured in your thoughts. You're
but this is the problem with one word that's supposed to.
But that's why Republican.
Right.
That's why Republican is not conservative. Republican is a narrative.
Yep.
Conservative is a predisposition. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Creative Businessmen. On this episode, it's just Daniel and I, and we wanted to have an episode to just discuss some ideas and topics we wanted to talk about. Some things we've talked about before, some are new topics, and also we wanted to question these ideas and punch some holes in them. And I think it's kind of how you learn. I mean, you need to have conversations with people about ideas or the ideas you have, and you need to hear a differing view or a different perspective, maybe a perspective that doesn't agree with you, and the more difficult the conversation is, the more you learn from it, and that's kind of what we did in this episode. I think you guys will really enjoy it. We want to hear your perspective on the topics too. Please leave comments in the comment section and let us know how you feel about those topics or some of your ideas about those topics. Maybe it'll inspire some ideas. But anyway, I think you guys will enjoy the episode. It was fun. I enjoyed it. And also, if you enjoy the show, please like and subscribe. We really appreciate your support. And here you go.
That they were talking about that Amanda Nunes fight the other day because just that her losing that fight, whatever is what it is. But her interview after the fucking humility was just fucking fantastic. She was like, I prepared. She was really good tonight. She's a warrior. I knew she. You know what I mean? Just watching.
Good sportsmanship.
Yeah, I can't wait to watch them fight again because she's gonna come back like a fucking animal.
Yeah, I prefer that. Awesome. I prefer humility and defeat and victory.
1,000,000%.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
100%. So I feel like I respect it because nobody's perfect, and I don't think maybe everybody expects to win all the time, but I mean maybe there's certain people expect that, but I don't think the masses do. I think they and on some level. I think you respect somebody that can lose and come back from it.
Yeah. Well, sometimes you need a reality check too, right?
Yeah, so 100%. What's his name? Floyd.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the things about him. Like, I wish he would have lost.
Sure.
Right? Because, if you have a perfect record, there's a negative there too.
Yeah. Sure. I think sometimes the losses come and they're not on your record, right? I'm positive that guy started with a loss.
That's true.
With his situation in his life, and you listen to him talk about his upbringing and things like that. I don't think you get to a level of where he got without taking some losses, and maybe they're just not shown on his fighting record.
That's a very good point.
True.
He said something the other day, and he said somebody asked him if money defined him, and he said absolutely not. And he said his morals, his character, that he's straight up, that he says what's on his mind, and that he's real with people. Apparently he doesn't drink.
He's real
just
healthy.
Very healthy. And said that he said money is not what I do, it's what I make. Mm. And I was like, ooh, I like that.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Dude,
and he said he fought many fights for free.
Yeah.
He said some things you fight in life on principle. And I was like, I like that too.
Yeah. I think when you look at people like that, the perception of them, I think we get caught up a lot of times in the same thing we complain about. It's like we could judge that guy and be like, oh, he's not humble or whatever it is. All the things people say, but we just don't know what the life is like, right? Like I could look at you and make a lot of judgments, right? You said something to me. You said two things. Well, you said a bunch of things, but two things that stuck out, and I've been thinking about them a little bit. It was like, I don't look like I have the amount of money I have. You know what I mean? The way you carry yourself and dress. And I think it's when if I don't know you, I can make a lot of fucking assumptions.
Right.
And then once I get to know you, it makes more sense, right? And you said something about working your way back to zero. And I was telling Neil this the other day. I was like, you said something to me. And I'm a guy who needs to write things down when I hear them because I don't want to forget them. And you said something to me, but I was in the conversation. I didn't want to look like a fucking nerd by going to write something like a knock. You know what I mean? Yeah. Oh, Daniel said da-da-da. But you did say something about, it was the way you phrased it, working your way back to zero or hustling back to zero. Do you remember what you said?
Basically, what I'm assuming I said was that March 18th of every year that I celebrate zero because that's the anniversary. I had to work my way back to zero.
Working your way back to zero.
So I had, this is a fictitious number, but I had this supposed $10 million net worth, and I had a $12 million swing. So I lost the $10 million fictitious net worth. Because, what is a net worth based on the way we propose it? I mean, honestly, I just didn't believe that after the fact. I was real quick to tell everybody, when I was younger, all about this, all the greatness I was. And the reality is a very humbling experience. And long story short, had that $12 million swing, ended up negative $2 million, and had to work my way back to zero just to start over, basically, right? So imagine from a humbling experience to move in with your parents into their garage. Called it a 2-car garage, but really it's a garage and a half. And they closed it in. They put a window unit out of a shed into the garage, and we took the carpet that we cut out of my lake house that I lost, and we laid it on top of the concrete. And what furniture we had left, we put on there, and that's where we lived. And at the time, Jessica, myself, and I had 2 children. And prior to leaving, she got pregnant with our 3rd child, and so we celebrate 0 every year on March 18th. And if I'm not mistaken, it's 6 years this coming March 18th, 6 years from 0. So,
oh yeah,
yep. So it was a lot to work to that. So you think, there was a study that came out, this report that said that the day you're born, that you have a higher net worth than the average American today, because the average American's in debt.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Right. And so I can relate to that, because the running joke I used to have, and this is a real story, I gave a homeless man, I think it was $1 or $2. I think it was $2. And I said, you're $2 million and $2 richer than I am right now.
Right.
Because I was negative $2 million at the time. And, and I said it, and I was just getting to a point where I could say it out loud. Like I could verbalize how I felt and not break down about it. Like, and so when I said it as a joke, and also to make them feel better. And I think they thought it was just a joke.
Sure.
But for me, it was like hard to say that and then understand what that really meant, because people think acquiring $1 million is difficult, right? Imagine digging out of you. Not only do you not have $1 million, you have negative $2 million. So it's like
you're -3.
Yeah. So it was definitely. I'm blessed that it happened to me, and a mentor of mine said, better learn a $10 million lesson than a $100 million. And I said, well, technically a $12 million lesson. But yeah, I got you.
Yeah.
And I agree with that. At this point in my life, and for the last little while, I would tell you that I'm thankful to have lost it, when I lost it, how I lost it, and to have went through that process and having to start over, because, some of those lessons just can't be taught, but they can be learned.
Right.
If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I can tell you about it all day long. I hope you never have to learn it the way I did.
Yeah.
There's something about the feeling that you can't replicate, you can't verbalize, you can't teach that.
Yeah. And I say I hope you never have to learn it, but I guess actually what I would say is I hope you learn it early, and I hope you're able to recover from it and learn the lesson and take it just as that, not as an ending defeat, but as a small stepping stone, right? I think that's the better advice, actually. Rather than saying, I hope it doesn't happen to you, I hope it happens early enough in your life that you can recover from it.
Or you have someone in your life that can help you identify it before it happens.
I heard somebody, it was a rapper, I can't remember who it was. I was listening to it this morning. He said, I've never had a loss, but I've had a bunch of lessons.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Good way
to put it.
And something else, man, while we're on it, I had somebody say to me the other day, I heard something that Pitbull said. And I was like, wow, that actually makes a lot of sense. I hear all the time, money doesn't buy happiness. I disagree with that at face value. However, I also say that if you're going to be unhappy, because if money doesn't buy happiness, not having money also does not buy happiness.
Right, you're right.
The actual thing is that money may not have as direct a correlation as whether or not you're happy or not, right? But Pitbull said something that I think would benefit everybody out there. He said that money does buy happiness. You just have to give it away.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
And I was like, actually,
I saw that. Yeah.
that makes a lot of sense. Maybe you shared it or something, or maybe it was one of your things because you share some. I don't know.
Well,
but either way, I was like, that actually makes a lot of sense.
It's funny when we talk about, when you bring up the name Pitbull, you laugh instantly, and people, we do that, right? We start judging these people, and I think that's
part of the problem.
It is,
yeah.
right? Because we see people. You said something about Aubrey Marcus a few weeks ago. We laugh at those things. It's because it's like I watch a lot of Gary Vee, and
Love Gary Vee.
Me too. A year and a half ago, I was watching Gary Vee, and I've almost unsubscribed to him a million times because his fucking positivity was killing me because I was so fucking depressed. And my mindset...
It's a lot.
My depression was telling me, this is bullshit, get away from it. And then as I've changed my mindset, there is a little bit of shame in following certain people online. And when you say you got a lesson from Pitbull, people can judge that, but that fucking guy has done it.
Very successful.
Yeah,
very successful.
Yeah.
I think for me, the thing is even I didn't expect it.
Right? Yeah.
And like with Shaq, everybody... See, I'm not really a big sports guy.
Sure.
I'm just not.
Yeah.
Not either.
I respect and admire things that... To me, the sport is no different than the job. It's
Sure.
no different than the career. It
is a job.
It's a way
I
that
respect and admire Taylor Swift.
Me too.
Yeah.
I don't like her music, but
Yeah, I actually do. I'm a big fan.
Yeah. We got to come back to this Taylor Swift thing real quick in a second. But, I got a point I want to talk about that. But at the same point, I can respect that they had this thing that they did that made money, and then what they did with that money, right? And so like that's why with Shaq, like the business person he's become. Michael Jordan lost half his fortune through divorce. We're not even going to get into whether he should or shouldn't have, but rebuilt back and as a billionaire and made more money off the court than he ever made on the court, right? It was a byproduct of that, but
Absolutely.
still, that's impressive. I don't have to like him as a person to respect some of the things he's accomplished.
You look at the number of athletes who have changed the way business is done for athletes, and I know not a sports conversation, but I think the percentage was 85% of athletes in the NBA. This is 10 or 12 years ago. 85% of the athletes would go broke within 5 years after being in the league, and now that number has shrunk below 10% because of financial literacy and people like Shaq and studying the guys like Warren Buffett and things like that.
Yeah.
You said something about money not buying you happiness. There's a comedian, I can't remember who it was. I think it was Daniel Tosh. Years ago, he said, "You ever been sad on a jet ski? You just can't do it." You know what I mean? We were talking yesterday about depression, and I'm a sad, and Neil asked, does financial situation change that at all? And I said, well, I think it does, but I don't think it's the reason other people think. It's not having money doesn't make me less sad or more happy. It takes away some of the triggers that create anxiety, and it lets you focus on other things, right? If you have a little bit more money, it's not going to make you happy. It'll just allow you to focus on some things that are a little more important.
I agree with that, and Robin Williams is a good example of this.
Yes.
There's a lot of them, but I know of a lot of wealthy people that have killed themselves.
Absolutely.
Money does not, at its root, cause or solve everything. Right, like I mean, so I would
purpose is what gives you happiness.
Yeah, I think
exactly.
So.
It's having something. If you're going to lay in bed sad, you might as well. If you're going to be sad, you can lay in bed or you can work.
Yeah. No, and I think you get up and you move, and there's a chemical thing that's released, and it's one of these things. Like I don't know, like I never would have ever said I was depressed ever in my life. Until the 18 months I lived at home with my parents. And the very first part of that, there was a window. I think it's better to say it. I shouldn't be ashamed to say.
You should.
But there was a period, a small window, where I slept 18 hours a day. Like, I lost everything, lost all this bullshit, right? And the toys and the jet skis and the lake house, all the crap that meant nothing, actually, right? But I lost all that, -$2 million. Very humbling to move into a garage, living on a concrete floor, wife, 2 kids, -$2 million, and I didn't want to get up, right? Like I was just like, there was a period, I think it lasted almost 6 months, like 18 hours a day, I just slept. I just didn't want to get out of bed, and then I got out of bed, and you got to face everything, right? You got to face defeat daily, disappointment, from family members, from people that counted on you. And when you lose everything, what you don't realize, too, is when so many other people depended on you, other staff, other employees, other partners, other investors, like it permeates through your entire life. So every time
How can it not?
Yeah, so you're awake, you're dealing with it, right? And I just...
Carrying that weight constantly.
Yeah. So, and that's not a woe feel bad for me.
No.
It was just a...
It's important that you say that, though. But and this goes back to the Floyd Mayweather conversation, right? Yeah. We don't see that loss. You don't have an L on your record. You know what I mean? Like, you know it exists. But me looking from the outside... You'd
never see it,
You can't see it, right? And you have to talk about that shit because that is that
know,
lesson.
Yeah, that's true. Well, and that's the thing. Like, if I'm unwilling to talk about it on social media nowadays, all you see is perfect.
That's it.
Right? And so I think it's important, and I'm getting better at talking about it and not saying unfortunately. Like, I mean, I'm fortunate to have made it through it.
It is what you said, though. It's like, it's not a lesson that can be taught, but it is one that can be learned, right?
Yeah, 100%.
And you needed that lesson, and without that lesson, who knows where you would have been without it,
people that are much wealthier than I am have said over and over again, better to lose whatever amount of money than to lose $100 million.
Yeah.
And the guy that's
12 than the 100.
Yeah, and the guy that's worth $1 billion would tell you better to lose $100 million than $1 billion, right? It's there's levels to everything, right? So if you're going to learn a lesson, it's got to be painful enough that you actually learn from it.
Yeah.
And maybe for me that was $12 million. Maybe for somebody else that's $100,000. Like whatever the number is irrelevant. It's all about where you are in your life and how that impacts you, right? Yeah. Like I hope you learned the lesson for as little as possible. But you got to learn the lesson. He I don't want to say too much of his, but he did. He navigated his differently. Yeah. But he learned some very, very tough lessons, you know what I mean?
I've always been pretty conservative financially, though.
Extremely considerable, yeah.
It helped me.
I think extremely.
Navigate. But I lost almost everything and my leg, so.
Yeah, true.
Right, yeah.
True.
About the same time.
That was I think when you and I had first started hanging out, I think it had been months, and then finally you told me the story about your accident and losing your leg.
Yeah.
And it was just like, there you are. I didn't know who you were until I heard that story.
I remember that conversation, yeah.
Yeah, me too.
In front of the idiot box.
Yeah, man. And it was just like, holy shit. Because, again, from the outside, I look at you, you're driving the nice car up, you're in good shape, you obviously take care of yourself, you got money. I'm like, well, fuck this guy. You know what I mean? Like, he's pretty dull and fucking whatever, man. He's got a little bit of autism, whatever it is. But then, when I hear that story about you and you tell me that story, it's like, oh, Jesus Christ, man. Like, he's been through some fucking things, and that's why you are where you are. And that lesson is a big one.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah. We're all just people.
Yeah. I think what you said was you were grateful that it happened, like almost in a way. Like it taught you who you were, right?
Yeah. Well, it let me reevaluate everything.
You had taken some things for granted?
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Yeah. And also missing a lot of things. When you're in that go state of mind, you especially younger in life, you don't think about time, like the passage of time and everything that's happening, but we only have the moment we're in.
Right.
Everything outside of that's not really real.
Yeah.
It's either it hasn't happened yet or it's already happened, and it's a memory.
Right.
It's just you have to appreciate the moment you're in, the now, because that's all that is really real.
Yeah.
Yeah, you tend to take that shit for granted,
Yeah.
And then 20 years goes by, you realize you didn't take advantage of that time, right?
Well, also the older you get, the less time you have, and the different, and then you perceive time differently. So time seems to go by much faster as you get older.
Yeah. You can have all the money in the world, you can't buy more time. It's not a renewable resource.
Yeah.
Warren Buffett has a quote about that, and Charlie Munger, something about that he can buy anything he wants except time.
Yeah.
So
come on, science.
Yeah. Warren, it's time for you to start investing a little differently. But
before we get too far, too,
Taylor Swift.
Not yet.
We'll put a pin in the Taylor Swift.
Can money buy happiness? They have done some pretty solid studies on.
I would lean more towards yes, by the way.
I would too, and the reason I say it is because they've done some studies on, is there like a magic number for happiness? And honestly, the studies show that about the $80,000 income mark is where most people's financial stresses go away. If they're conservative with their money, if they're not living within their means, you can live a pretty happy life at that range. Anything above that is kind of gravy. And it goes back to that argument too of like you and I don't do what we do for money.
No,
we do it because it's just what
it's
we
do. It's a byproduct,
right? Yeah.
No, yeah. I mean, at this point,
yeah.
I've thought this thought very briefly. It's a fleeting thought, but so real quick, without boring everybody, let's do basic math here. Let's just assume that you can invest in the stock market and it's going to pay you on average. Let's just use the number 10% a year. Mm-hmm. Not every year, but let's just say it averages that over a lifetime. Well, in theory and in practice, there are people. You could just simply, let's say that you can live off of, if you don't mind me, Eric, what number could you live off of a year?
Oh, I mean, I've done this math. My number is really specifically low.
What is it?
It's right around 18,000.
Okay, so you need 180 grand. Mm-hmm. Okay, you put 180 grand in the stock market. So your goal, let's say you're 18 years old. It's real simple. Mm-hmm. Figure out what you can live off of. Work every second of every day that you can, and save that number. Right. Invest that number. And if you just did something as simple as the stock market, buy a $180,000 rental property. Buy two rental properties, right? Mm-hmm. I'm not even going to get to, they put off cash flow, they grow, they appreciate in property value, you get depreciation, you save on taxes, you get increased rents over time. We're not even going to go into all that. Sure. Just water it way down. All you need to do is make 180 grand, put it up, and live off the proceeds. You can retire the rest of your life, right?
Right.
And the good news is that because of inflation, as the cost of living goes up, your return also will go up. If it's in real estate, if it's in something that's a hedge. So literally, it's simple. And I know you've made 180 grand in your lifetime. Sure. The difference is not what you make; it's what you've spent, right? Mm-hmm. So wherever you're at in your life, whether you need $1 million a year, or 100 grand a year, or 20 grand a year, it's a simple thing, right? The problem is that people don't think that way.
Well, it comes down to financial literacy. It comes down to discipline. These are all things that a lot of people don't have. And I've never...
Well, you probably didn't have that conversation at...
I have never. I've never had that conversation. I've only recently had those conversations with you guys.
Yeah.
And that's why, we had Jordan Fisher, who is the episode just before this one.
Yeah.
Where it's you, Jordan, and Tom. And that one goes specifically more into business and finances, right?
Yeah.
And... there are a lot of people who just don't have the mindset that you have, and I have been one of those people. Yeah. And learning these things is, I'm 45 years old, I think, and I'm just now having these conversations.
It's okay. Colonel Sanders didn't start till he was 60.
Yeah.
There are several. I can tell you.
And 60 then was really old.
Yeah, and exactly. And I'll tell you, I'm going to mess this up, but.
He looked like Eric when he was 25.
Exactly.
I'm coming in here with a Colonel outfit next week.
I love it. Bring some KFC, please. I'll bucket. But they do the millionaire studies all the time. But Dave Ramsey, right? I think their average millionaire, right? Like if you look at the age, the stuff, and when they started, that most of them didn't even really start working on their financial literacy. Like their average age point is what would be considered middle-aged,
right?
Yeah, 40s, yeah.
Because that's when you really most people start to wake up and pay attention.
You start thinking about your mortality in 40s.
Yeah.
I mean, it gives you some hope for future generations because these conversations are happening more and more often.
Yeah.
You're starting to see like public figures actually talk about wealth and accumulating wealth. These conversations weren't happening before, and that's one of the great benefits of social media. I'm not a huge fan, but one of the great benefits is that people like you guys get to talk directly to people who need to hear that.
Yep.
Rick Ross just put out an album. I was thinking about you guys last night. It's called Richer Than I've Ever Been. And
I'm gonna have to listen to this. Yeah.
You should. It's I watched it. I actually watched the lyrics on the Apple TV app, and it's a really interesting point of storytelling, man.
On the way here, I listened to Sanctified. I don't know if you remember what that is.
No.
Yeah, you need to check out Rick Ross, Sanctified.
Oh, yeah.
It's a little graphic, but it's good. But okay. Sanctified. There's some business advice in there somewhere, but...
yeah, well, this album, it opens up. The quote, "Richer Than I've Ever Been," comes from the cocaine boss from forever ago. He said something about, I think he's still in prison, he said something about 85% of the coke. If you did cocaine in this 15-year stretch, it was an 85% chance that it was his cocaine,
Talk about the original Rick Ross.
Yeah, it's like I can't remember.
He's
this
out of
guy's-
prison.
This guy is I can't remember his name.
Okay. Is it Highway Rick Ross or something?
Nah,
okay.
I'll find it for you. But the quote is, that he's broke. He has nothing but his knowledge, and he's richer than he's ever been, and that's where it comes from. And it's really the perspective is interesting.
Well, so the whole point of that whole story, right?
Yeah.
About the multiple of 10, right? And we can say, oh, well, the average return in stock market's 8%. Whatever, that's fine. Then use that same multiple, right? Sure. Now we need 12 times approximately the income, right? But the whole point of that whole story that I didn't even get to, my apologies, is that what you're going to figure out is very quickly you're going to lack purpose, and very quickly you will, if you don't find something to do, you will become depressed.
Yes.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. You need something to fulfill you. Now that doesn't necessarily mean you need a job, just over broke. You need something to fulfill. You need a dream, a passion. You need something, children, family, life. Right. You need some level of purpose, regardless of the level of money you have. Like Warren Buffett, Charlie Munger doesn't get spoken about. Warren Buffett gets brought up quite a bit, but I mean I think he's 91.
Okay.
He's still clocking 40 hours a week. Right. 40 hours a week. I don't care what anybody says out there. That's part time. Right, that's part-time. If you work 40 hours a week and you tell me how tired you are, I'm going to laugh a little bit on the inside because you're lazy.
Unless you're doing something that's a mindless job. But,
Well,
then
but
you
what
should
are you-
be
what are you
spending your
doing for
extra
the next-
time.
yeah, what do you do the next 40
finding out
hours?
what you're good at.
Yeah, the next 40 hours. If 40 hours is for somebody else, what are you doing the 40 hours for yourself?
Although today a lot of people are working 80 hours a week trying to just make it, and
Yeah.
that's one of the problems with.
Man, I'd love to
With
meet
the
some of those people. I see all the ones working 35, 40 hours a week, doing everything they can but make it.
Yeah, yeah.
I think that's a rarity.
Well, I think also
We can't get people to come to jobs.
Yeah, I think
It's like raising the rate to 15, everybody will come higher. No, they won't.
No, I think you. So like my idea is to change society where it's based on participation, productivity, and prosperity. So you create a situation where people are incentivized to do more.
I would love that. I think eventually you'll be to a point where people can chase their passion. So if everybody, So
exactly.
imagine. Let me flip this on its head. If that math is right, let's just say that the average 18-year-old can earn, and I know 18-year-olds that can earn $100,000 a year.
Sure.
It's physical labor.
Yeah.
But you can go on $100,000 a year at 18. But let's just say the average 18-year-old can earn $30,000 a year, and they're not going to like it. They're going to hate it.
Sure.
Right, and they figure out they can live off $30,000 a year. Well, then we just do the math and go, okay, well, how long does it take them to save $300,000? Right, and you've got scale, you got all these things, but literally, maybe people can just work for a very short period of time to produce, and then they can live off the proceeds and pursue their passion. I have no idea.
Well, I think
I don't know what the right answer is, but
I
mean,
believe I think we could change our monetary system today, and it could be just with fiat currency or a combination of fiat and cryptocurrencies. And an 18-year-old could work 20 hours a week and make $104,000 a year.
I think what you're saying is probably possible. It's not probable. Not right now.
I think exactly. We could do it today. 100% sure we could do it, but probability of it happening, it breaks down a lot of power constructs.
Yeah, which needs to happen, and that will over time.
You said something interesting. You said you brought up the word purpose, and I think that really is the key to a lot of. For me, what I've found is I was thinking about this last night. I spent 7 years in this really fucked up headspace, man. I suicidal, very depressed. And what I realized was it was because I created a distance between me and my kids.
Oh, yeah.
My kids got a little bit older, and I wanted to go be a fucking comedian and live in a goddamn van, you know what I mean? And all of that stuff was important for me. I needed to have that experience and learn those lessons. But then what I realized is when I started going back and repairing my relationship with my kids, my mental state improved. I needed to have that purpose. My purpose needs to be my relationship with my family. It needs to include them. You know what I mean? Because when it isn't, I had no direction, and I didn't give a fuck what happened to me.
It's an anchor.
Yeah.
Stability. Yeah,
That's the most important.
Yeah. I agree with that. And so this is where we come into. So everybody's like, well, why do you do what you do? Like I still, there are weeks where I'm working 80 hours, but by and large, it's 100 hours a week. Mm-hmm. And if I'm not mistaken, there's 160 hours in the week. What is it?
Something like that. Yeah.
Let's figure it out real quick. You got that?
Because of how much you
mentioned
what's 24 times 7?
24 times 7 is 168.
168. Okay, so there's 168 hours in a week. I clock 100.
Yeah.
Right? And everybody's like, well, how do you do that? It's simple. That still leaves 68 hours, right?
Right.
Well, how many hours a night do you sleep?
Right.
I mean,
5, 6, 7, 8.
6 hours, you still have 126 hours.
Yeah.
You had
Right.
mentioned something not that long ago.
And then how many hours a day do you want to spend with your family? 2?
Yeah.
That's 14 hours a week.
You,
Right?
you
I
had
mean, like, I
mentioned-
got all kinds of time.
You had mentioned kind of, and I hope you don't
Weekends,
mind
I
me
spend
talk-
more time with my family.
Yeah.
I hope you don't mind me mentioning this, but you had mentioned you're prioritizing the amount of time you spend with your family coming up. And
Oh, yeah.
That's
Yeah,
something
yeah.
you've been
100%.
working
Yeah. I mean, and I think you need to do that. And I'm making different decisions. So, like, we live in Mooresville. So one of the commitments I made is not to not do projects, it's to do projects locally, right? So instead of, we had an opportunity come up here recently out of state, 7 hours drive and hour and a half flight, not counting the time to go through the airport and everything. So let's call it round trip, 3 to 4 hours by flight and round trip 14 hours by car. And I had this opportunity that's an awesome opportunity. I mean, I've looked at the metrics. It makes all the sense in the world. Probably about a 34% return annually on my investment. Huge, great opportunity. We passed. The reason I passed is because it doesn't fit inside of the parameters that I've set, the commitment I've made to spend more time in Mooresville, right? So the investments I'm looking at, and you think, oh well, you can create cookie cutter systems and you can run them anywhere in the world. Yes, you can, but not with every business. And this specific type of business requires more oversight, more management, and has more heavier likelihood that you're going to have problems pop up. So for me, it didn't fit our long-term vision, and so it didn't fit that I want to spend more time with my family. So I don't want to do nothing. I just want to have purposeful work, meaningful work in these areas that I want to live with my family. And this is not an area that I would bring my family. So,
Is this a decision you would have made a year or two ago?
no, I would have done the business and I wouldn't have consulted with Jessica or anyone else because I don't typically think it's a good idea to make business decisions early on with people that are emotional.
Sure.
Or they're making an emotional decision. I'm trying to make a financial decision.
Yeah.
It's two different things,
Yeah.
right? And everything has a cost. So if you see someone that's successful, typically they paid a different price, right? And if I see someone that's been an awesome family man and an awesome father and an awesome husband, and they're involved in their children's life, they've paid a price too, typically. Not always the case, but very often. And so everything has a cost. And so when you start to make a business decision with somebody that's gonna lean more towards an emotional one, you'll make the wrong decision. And I think, and everybody fears away from the word emotion, but emotion is anger, emotion is fear, emotion is being excited about something, right? Anticipation, right? Like you don't want any emotion. I think you want to make a decision from a place of fulfillment, right? Like you want to make a decision as if you are already fulfilled.
It should be a rational decision.
A rational decision, right? Yeah. And so you want to do as best you can to make as least an emotional decision as possible.
How do you manage that? How do you make sure that you are making a rational decision? What are the things you have to implement in your life to put you in a position where that you are doing that more often than not?
I think some of that's just biological, but I think for me, it's if it's a new opportunity or a new investment or something, I expect there to be a certain level of excitement behind it. So I just kind of acknowledge, there's some excitement there, but also what's the opposite of that? What else can happen? Like
right.
If it fails, what does it cost me?
Yeah.
What's the loss? What's the risk? All these, you're constantly gauging, risk and evaluating what the opportunity is, how
right.
much, what's the risk versus reward.
Yep.
And I think on the opposite side of excitement, there's fear, right? And fear will also prevent you from taking advantage of opportunities. But then there's also, does this opportunity, like you're saying, align with my other goals? Is it an opportunity or is it a distraction?
True.
And so it's a really complex thing that you can't be emotional about it because that'll distract you from making a good decision because it's not an emotional decision. It may lead to emotional things in the future. You may have
emotional results.
Yeah, but it has to be a rational rational, strategic. What's the word? Like analytical decision.
Yeah.
You know,
so how do you get yourself in that place? I struggle with sleep, but when I'm well rested, food. So I'm an emotional eater, but take that out of it. It's scientifically proven when you eat, you're less emotional. There's some hormone and toxin release, whatever, that happens in your body.
I mean, we're programmed to
Right.
need calories to go, right?
Yep. So if you're well fed,
Gives you a little bit of safety.
you're
Calms
fed,
you down a little bit.
You're rested. You're sleeping. You're in a good place mentally, right? If you get in that zone, like when I have that happen, I make a lot of decisions.
also be in a clear mental state too, because
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
you're like my mental state changes through the day.
Yeah.
You know, I have like I'll
What
have
is that?
Do you ever feel like you're on fire? Like you're like, yeah, I'm in the
Yes.
zone.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
right?
yeah.
That's when I make the decisions.
That's when you make the decisions.
quick,
Yeah.
Right.
quick,
Yeah,
Yeah.
you trust that.
100%. When I'm in that state, I've done it long enough.
Yeah.
That's when let's bang it out.
Because you know you're at your sharpest. It's like
Exactly.
everything's crystal clear.
And if I'm
I'm
not sharp, he does this. He's notorious for this, and I've picked this up from him. If we're not in that place, we'll put a pin in it.
Yeah.
And we don't say it like that.
See, that's the discipline, though.
Yeah.
That's the discipline of knowing the difference between that state
Yeah.
and the hyper emotional state. I will get hyper emotional, and I feel like I'm in that flow state. I can be in a manic state that feels exactly the same as my flow state, and I knowing the difference is a skill that I haven't had in the past, and I'm really
Yeah.
focused on that now because I need to know the difference because I can make a decision in either one of those states that feels the same, but the
Right.
repercussions will be different.
Yep. And so I don't know. In the beginning, when you're getting started out, you need to take what opportunity you can. As you progress those
Sure.
levels, you can be more selective about those opportunities.
And that goes to what you were saying about that $80,000 mark, right? Is like being to where you know your basic needs are met allows
Yeah.
you the ability to maybe make better decisions.
Yeah, you're not focused on surviving.
Yeah.
Right.
If I had to go, let's go backwards. When I was completely broken, I couldn't feed my kids.
Yes.
Thankfully, shout out to Michael Bennett, but one of my best friends since 11 years old, he fed my family, right? Or they wouldn't have eaten, right? That's the reality of the situation. But if somebody would have said to me, you're going to go shovel shit, or whatever the thing, right? Like, this is what I need you to do, and in exchange for that, your children aren't going to starve. I think if people come from that place, like at some point in life, you just have to do what it takes, and you take that opportunity as a way to survive. That doesn't mean that's where you're at forever, right?
Sure.
And you use that as a stepping stone. So I made a lot of decisions that were the right business decision, and now I'm getting to a point where there's enough opportunity. I want to be in North Carolina predominantly, let's say suburbs of Charlotte, and I really like St. Pete, or let's call it the Gulf, that area of the Gulf Coast, right? So I'm looking for opportunities that arise in those areas. I've been looking. I didn't just decide this and then buy a business the next day. Like, I've been saying that this was something I was going to work towards, I think, for probably 2 or 3 years.
At least.
Yeah. So I didn't just say, hey, I'm going to invest in this area and then do it overnight, because you can't
Right.
just pick where opportunities are.
Right.
Right. There's things for sale every day. There's not opportunities.
Right.
Yeah.
When you said, Michael helping you getting your family fed, and knowing that when that happens, that doesn't mean that lasts forever. When you were in that, were you aware that wasn't going to be forever? When you were staying in bed,
No. I mean,
16
honestly,
hours a day, was the feeling that was going to be forever? Was that there, or were you aware that it wasn't?
So, and I should say this: my mother and father would have
1,000,000%,
helped,
yeah,
right? They would have helped.
absolutely.
But the problem is that pride gets in the way, right? I didn't want to ask for
Pride
help.
and shame are a motherfucker.
Shame, yeah. So I felt in that moment as if it would never end. Right.
Yes.
When I go back to that moment, I've had nightmares about that moment.
Yeah.
And I'm
You
like,
still?
yeah, literally, I've kicked my own ass in my dreams. Like, wake the fuck up. Excuse my French, but wake the fuck up. Like, every problem can be solved, but you got to get your mental state in a point that you understand that really what it requires is just one foot in front of the other. It sounds cliche, but just get the fuck up.
Yeah, but those nightmares about that time in your life is also part of what you've learned. It's part of it's keeping you in check now.
Yeah. So,
I had these death dreams, for recurring dreams every night for a year and a half at different points. And what I came to realize were those dreams, what I thought they were dreams where my brain was telling me to kill myself. And what it was scaring the fuck out of me, telling me that I don't want that.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And see, I used to struggle with that a lot, and really more so now, I struggle with someone else harming someone I love.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
And more so someone I love that can't defend themselves.
Sure.
Right. And specifically children that are abused or taken advantage of. Like I've been very much less sympathetic, and I'm getting better at this, of adults than I am of children.
1,000,000%.
And so, you know, and I'm working on that. I think that some adults deserve help too, you know, and I just help them anonymously.
Because they are just grown up, broken children.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, so the more and talking to other people and realizing that, I still put more of my effort for children, but I don't know. It's just, it felt like it would never end. And I'm so thankful not to be in that place. Like, it was a bad place. And so, you know, when I hear people say, oh, I'm depressed, I'm this or that, and if it's not just programmed response, because I'm kind of getting to where I can tell where it's bullshit.
Sure.
It
where
feels
it's
like
the truth versus an excuse.
Right. Whereas somebody's really struggling.
Yeah.
Because I do feel like some people are just, it's a programmed response.
Isn't that somewhat, though, isn't that a sign that our society's not healthy? When that's kind of the consensus amongst most people, like they're always like living the dream and all this. It's always negative,
Yeah.
but when I see a lot of people being negative, it shows me that society is not happy. Like, as a whole, like, we're not a happy society.
Yeah. I know a lot of people I agree with that. And I know a lot of people that are struggling that are very, what's the word, generous.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
You know, and I think on some level, I've met a lot of wealthy people that are not generous, and you just think it's because they're a Scrooge. Many times it's because they've been taken advantage of.
And vice versa.
Wealth doesn't make happiness, right?
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
And the people who are struggling and are generous, it's because I believe most times those people are empathetic to a struggle.
Yeah.
You know, you have to, in order to recognize a struggle, it helps if you are someone who's been through a struggle.
Yeah.
Well, you know, something that's interesting too, and I saw Jordan Peterson talk about this recently, and I wanted to bring this up on the podcast today anyway. So I saw an episode of, and I've seen him say this before, but on Joe Rogan's podcast, he refers to conservatives as Republicans and Democrats as liberals. But I think we all need to have a clear. There needs to be a clear difference between those two things, or those four things.
Yeah.
Because they're not the same thing. A conservative is not necessarily a Republican, and a liberal is not necessarily a Democrat. I feel like the parties are things that have been created to divide people. And even George Washington didn't like parties because he thought that politics should be based on ideas, and people should run on their ideas, not some party alignment. And I wanted to talk about power constructs, and I think this falls into that, because what we have now is if you step back from society and you look at society, you have major corporations and a few really high level billionaires that control pretty much everything. And these corporations, think of all these corporations, you know, there's probably 50 or 100 of them at the very top.
Right.
Maybe a few more. And so these corporations hold the power, right? They have the power in their hands. And then with that power, they control all the politicians, Republicans and Democrats. And in our current political system, you can't be anything outside of Republican or Democrat and have a chance at making it in politics, because you'll upset the system. And so all these interests, all these corporations are paying money to all the politicians, not just Republicans, not just Democrats. But then you look at our society, you look at just people in general, people are typically going to be predisposed to be more conservative or more liberal. And we need that combination of people in society. Your conservatives are going to be people that are predisposed to being conservative. They're going to be more structured. They're going to be better at implementing ideas, structuring ideas. They're also good at analytical thinking. They're really good at finances. They're not very welcoming to change. They're very resistant to change, and they're also they also think about the future more, like where they're headed.
Yeah.
So they're good at running things or managing systems. And then you have the other part of the population, which are predisposed to be more liberal in their thinking, and where they fall in is they're going to be typically more creative. They're going to be better at coming up with new ideas, not great at implementing those ideas, not very structured in their life, not as good with finances, not as good at thinking ahead. There's also an aspect of people that are more liberal where their natural inclination is to make sure that they're looking out for the well-being of all people in the society. So in a society, you're going to have a certain number of people that sort of they sort of fall under they get lost in the system, and you need somebody that kind of helps the disenfranchised people in the society to pull them back up. And the structure that we have now in our government, in our current society. So you have Republicans and Democrats, and let's go back up to the political level, the representative level, where you have the Congress people and the president, and you have the legislative branch. But so you've got all these representatives that we have, and there's two parties. But all these representatives and these parties, both of these parties are getting paid by the same people. They're being supported and upheld by the same structure of power at the top. So if it's Citibank, they're paying the Republicans and the Democrats. If it's Pfizer, they're paying the Republicans and the Democrats. All these big corporations are paying all these parties, like both parties, all the representatives.
Well, it's like something Daniel had said a while back. It's if you own the gas station on one side, you might as well own the gas station on the other side. Just don't tell people you own both gas stations.
What you're describing to me is a good business decision, but like for me, like you want to win, you bet on both sides.
Well, yeah. So it's not corruption, but it's not a conspiracy. It's just corruption.
I don't know that it's corruption. You're playing by the rules. I don't know that I like it.
Well, the rules are corrupt.
Yeah. So I mean, the business itself is not doing a corrupt act because they're doing what they're allowed to do. They're playing within the rules that are set.
But the rules were set by them.
Well, they were set by their predecessors.
It's a conflict of interest.
But the rules were set by the people that had the power, that controlled the politics.
When you think about the power dynamic, I flip it on its head, and I think that the tip of the pyramid is the point that touches the ground, and the tip of the pyramid is the uber wealthy, right? Those companies, right?
Yeah.
That's the tip of the pyramid, but it's upside down, and it funnels up, and it's overtly supported by. Then we've got the Fortune 500, and then we've got the top 1,500 companies, and it works its all the way down to where when you get to the tips of the pyramid that the furthest points out, that whole top row is the individual citizen, and everything is a trickle down economy essentially to
that's what you're saying.
all
it's
the
all
wealth
flooding into those companies.
It's a funnel system that floods into the gas tank.
It's a funnel.
Is.
Yeah. So what I think is happening too is that humans are tribal by nature,
and I don't know that's the way it's designed. I don't like it, but how do we fix it?
It is designed that way.
And I don't like you're saying Republican, Democrat, or conservative, liberal.
Well, think about it this way, though.
That word means so much, but none of those words define me, which is what's frustrating.
Well, they're arbitrary words.
It works out really well for people to put people in very specific boxes. You're easy to control if you put in these boxes and then you pit it against the other.
Well, that's what I was getting to is that you can. So the way it is now, when you have the corporations and the individuals that control the whole system,
right?
And you have the politicians who do whatever they're told by these powers,
right?
Because it benefits them in the long run. That's why when politicians retire, they join the boards of these big corporations. They get paid strong salaries, or they get these ridiculous payments for speaking engagements and stuff like that. That's their payback for doing a good job and passing the laws that they wanted passed. But what happens with society is you have these two groups of people that are predisposed to lean slightly one way or the other. Most people are pretty close to the middle, but they're still going to be on one side of that aisle. I mean, I'm like right in the middle. I'm an unusual person, but most people are going to be on either side of that, and they're going to be liberal or conservative by nature. And then if you create these parties and you say, well, okay, the Republican Party is the conservative party, the Democrat Party is the liberal party, and then you say, okay, well, we need to get all these people on these two teams. And you know that conservative people they're going to be attracted to certain ideas. So the Republican Party will put out certain ideas or certain narratives they know will appeal to conservative people, and then they win over the conservative people in the society.
It eliminates it eliminates nuance.
Yes, yeah, you're building a team. You're building a tribal team, and then the Democratic Party will say, okay, if we push this narrative and these ideas, then liberal people we know that it's like bait. So they know that they'll be attracted to those ideas and they'll win over those people, and then they've got them on their team. And then no matter what these teams do, whether it's within their principles or their ideologies, even if it goes outside of those things, but just the fact that those people are already on those teams, they're going to support whatever the narrative that team pushes out. Yeah. And they have complete control over these people. And so they can take the population and pit them against each other. And the majority of the population is fighting each other while the power construct does whatever it wants to do because people are distracted.
Yeah.
And
it's a shell game.
Yeah. And the people on the Republican and the Democrat side, they're all just there for power. Yeah. They'll have lunch with each other. They don't care. They're not enemies with each other. Yeah. They're trying to pit society against itself so they can do what they want to do and keep power.
And you can follow the money too. Like if it's hard to sometimes, but I mean, a lot of people that like have a conservative news agency, a lot of them are also sitting on the boards and own these supposed liberal ones too. And it's just they're just playing everybody for, I guess, money and power. I don't know.
Bob Dole? Is that did President?
He just passed.
He spoke at Bob Dole, and they were opposite parties, right? And they said they were friends, right?
Well, look at the Clintons and the Bushes.
Yeah, I mean, Clintons and the Bushes. Like, I think that's the thing. I mean, I know there are prosecutors that meet with defense attorneys.
1,000,000%. It goes back and forth.
It's part of it. So I think for me, like,
the hope is that everything's transparent.
The people who have the most power sit in the same rooms, and they depend on everyone else being divided.
So what is it? So what am I then? Like, so think about this.
Yeah.
I think if you want, I don't think you should kill yourself. However, I believe that if you want to kill yourself, you can.
Humane suicide.
Right. So check this out. I can't stop you from doing it. I can make a law that says it's illegal. Good luck enforcing it. Right. So I don't, like, you're of whatever point that you're going to make it, and maybe I've provided all these resources, you still going to kill yourself? Have at it, right? I don't like killing babies that aren't born, but then we get to this thing, right? This is not a political thing. This is just like, you're 6 months pregnant. I personally don't like that, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. It gets real funny for me to tell somebody else what they can do. Again, so I'm kind of like, I'm not sure, right? I'm not sure that I get to say that or that the government gets to say that. But if it's my child, even though I'm a man, if it's my child, I do think I should get a right. I say so.
Yeah.
You know, and I know it's a woman's body, et cetera. I get that. But at the same point, there's a living being inside of you that is related to me, I think. So, I mean, like,
I think that's a tough topic. And
I'm not trying to go down rabbit holes. I'm just saying, like, there are things that I believe that some people say, oh, you're conservative. But I think you should.
You can make it about freedom of speech. You've said this before, right?
Yeah.
You should have the freedom to
we need to
say
have the
whatever
conversation.
you want, even if you don't agree with it.
No, yeah. Well, I agree with that completely. But if you try to put me in a box and say, okay, Daniel's a conservative or a Republican, I think you should be able to kill yourself. That takes me out of that box.
But I think
right, like, so.
I think you're a good example. As you're more predisposed to be conservative by nature because you fit those.
I don't know. I think.
See, it depends on who's. It depends on who's checking the box.
I mean, like, I don't know that I am because.
Are you checking your own box?
I think
or is someone else checking it for you?
You want to do cocaine? You want to do heroin? You believe the devil? You want to. I think you should do all those things.
I'm thinking just by the way you think though. You're more structured in your thoughts. You're.
But this is a problem with one word that's supposed.
But
to
that's why Republican.
Right.
That's why Republican is not conservative. Republican is a narrative.
Yep.
Conservative is a predisposition.
Yeah.
And it's not a bad thing. It's an important thing. You need conservative people working with liberal people to come up with ideas.
Would you say that defining somebody as conservative or liberal would change based on geography? Culture.
Well, I don't think necessarily. I think you're going to have both in any culture. I think you're going to have people that are
if
more.
you're in a culture that you're allowed to have 9 wives and it's encouraged, would you say that that's conservative there because that's what's accepted? That's the common practice? And yet if that person comes here to America, would that person still be considered conservative?
Well,
or how about marrying children?
Well, those are things that are accepted in cultures. Some of those are power-based.
No, but what I'm saying is that sometimes sin is geographical, and sometimes beliefs are based on geography, and sometimes what's conservative or liberal or whatever may be based on where you're from, and that part too is very frustrating.
Well, I'm looking at it as more of what is it like at its base core.
I think all of these conversations always have to start with the definition of the words, right?
Which is
the problem.
Yeah, which is the issue.
Right.
Yeah.
So I just looked up the definitions of liberal and conservative. And I'll just read these.
And I don't want to stab at anybody, but I don't like this change definitions to fit narratives on either party's part.
1,000,000%.
I want to say that.
And but so that is the issue. That's how we get to division. Is we push a narrative.
Well, you're demonizing the other person, and you shouldn't do that.
And that happens in every aspect, right? And that's when conversations stop happening, and that's when nuance and growth get taken out of the conversation. When we talk about difficult conversations to have, they have to start with the definitions of words because we can be an hour into something. And we can use the word liberal or we can use the word conservative, and we can have the conversation for an hour and a half, and at the end of it, ask people to define what those words mean, and you will come up with different definitions from every person.
So what's the definition? I want to hear this.
The definition, there are 2 definitions for each. I'll read both of them. Liberal, willing to respect or accept behavior or opinions different from one's own, open to new ideas. The second definition, relating to or denoting a political and social philosophy that promotes individual rights, civil liberties, democracy, and free enterprise. And then we'll go to conservative definition, averse to change or innovation and holding traditional values. In a political context, favoring free enterprise, private ownership, and socially traditional ideas. There are 4 different fucking definitions for both of these words. Do you know what I mean?
And those are ambiguous, by the way. They're vague. They're like there's so many holes in that. Like, see, this is.
But also, it goes to what I was saying about the narratives. You have these teams, and right now, that definition of liberal is the opposite of what you're seeing on the left for the most part. And that's why I'm saying you create tribal teams. You can tell them whatever you want to tell them, and they're going to just go along with it.
Yeah.
Even if it completely goes against what they believe internally, it's just they're going to support that tribe.
So,
and what I was saying about the different types of people, like I know you very well, and I know I've got to know Eric very well. Based on your your personalities, I would say you are more predisposed to being conservative,
right?
And Eric is more predisposed to being liberal. And like myself, I'm kind of in the middle as far as I think on both sides.
You live in that space in the Venn diagram that.
So like there's parts of my personality that lean to the left.
Would you say that sexual choice or orientation falls within being liberal, conservative, Republican, or Democratic?
I don't really think so. I don't think so. I think that's more of a narrative thing. That's
it is politicized.
It's politicized. That's the thing. That is. I don't think that really fits. Maybe it does, because I guess there could be some concern of how it could affect society. But I feel like that's more based in religion.
I feel like, well, I don't know about the religion part, but like, if you were to look at me just on paper, you'd say, "Oh, look at that liberal commie motherfucker." But I'm not. I'm totally not. Like, I'm conservative very much with what I do with my body and other people and all that kind of stuff. I'm very conservative. Like, even though it doesn't look at it, you look at my bank accounts, doesn't look like I'm good with money, but I'm pretty fucking good with money in what I've had to do and navigate. I'm not like you guys at all in any means, but I'm not in the negative.
Well, this is the problem with those words, right?
Yeah.
Like, we make like these assumptions based off of this box that we're put in. And like, that's the issue I have, is like, I think these are real issues, and to solve them, like, I tell people all the time, and this is a little graphic, so if you got kids around, close it. But I say, hey, I'm notorious for saying this. You're a grown-ass man. You want to stick your dick in a meat grinder, have at it. It's your choice. Right? And what I'm saying is, I'm giving an extreme example to elicit an emotional response from you. What I'm trying to get you to understand is, listen, I'm not your daddy. You do what you want. You're a grown-ass man. Make your own decisions. You're responsible for the outcome, right?
As long as it's not your meat grinder.
As long as it's not my meat grinder, yeah. I got a friend, when he has a moment, he wants to go destroy his house, I'll help you. It's not my house. It's not against the law to destroy your own property.
Right.
Go to file a fake insurance claim or file a claim of which you destroyed your own property with intent. That's a problem. But just destroying your own property, you can pay to fix it later. I'll help you. How about
It goes into freedom of speech doesn't necessarily mean freedom of repercussion.
But that's
You
not.
have a freedom of action, but
Exactly.
what happens because of
But
it?
Yeah.
what you would say, I wouldn't think you would define me as conservative based on that viewpoint.
I still would.
Really?
Yeah, because I don't base it on you. So when it comes to certain moral
let me
things,
give
a
you a
lot of
better
that's
example.
a lot of that's based on our.
Someone rapes your family member, and I say, you know what, you should kill that motherfucker. And
So
I believe that. Is that a conservative view?
Well, see, I think when
I
we
think
talk
that's a human view.
conservative,
This is where I struggle. Like these.
yeah, well, I think it's a fair point because I think when you think the terms conservative or liberal, I think most of us will go to a political standpoint, and I think what you're saying, conservative liberal,
It's
isn't
biological.
political; it's biological.
Yes, I'm avoiding
I got you.
all the politics.
Yeah, see,
Yeah,
I can.
But we are programmed now
it's more like
to
I
take
agree.
those words in a political way. Right?
Yeah.
It's more like this. This is maybe a better way to conceptualize what I'm saying. If Eric had a good idea, a really good creative idea,
It
'cause
happens.
he's a creative person.
I agree.
Eric has a great creative idea, but Eric has trouble implementing that idea because he's so creative, but he's not the best at structuring something or figuring out how to make that idea happen. But he could show you that idea, and you're like, oh, I understand what you're saying. You should do this, or we should do this, and then
absolutely,
you
yeah.
could implement that idea and structure it
That's
for
very
him.
much the way my mind works. Yeah.
Yeah, so
It
my
is very
mind,
much the way
Now, what does that make me? I have no idea.
my mind works on both sides.
it makes you wealthy. Is what
Yeah,
Rich as fuck. No, I'm just playing.
richer than I've ever been.
and that's my point. Is you
Yeah.
have half the society. It's a balance. Half the society is really
Yeah.
good at coming up with creative ideas. The other half is good at implementing ideas. And you know, some people are fall in the middle, and there's people like me who I can do kind of both. I can sort of shift back and forth. But we need a society to eliminate the power, to break down the power constructs in society and create a prosperous society. You need both of those people working together instead of right now where they're fighting each other.
And not even both of the people, right? So if we're talking about putting people in boxes, we're talking about Republican, Democrat, conservative, and liberal. Just sitting right here, there are 3 different fucking boxes, right?
Right, yeah.
And 4 of us. And the more you have, putting us into 2 boxes does us a disservice because then we're going to argue about which fucking box we're in
yeah.
instead of just working together.
We
from
should all be in
I
the same
think
box.
we actually, all 4 of us are very different.
Yeah.
And I think him and I are more similar, but there's a lot of differences.
Yeah,
But all 4 of us probably agree on more than we disagree about.
Absolutely.
100%. Yeah,
And that's,
I mean,
I think
just
the
everybody.
problem with these political parties is it focuses on those things that we disagree about.
Just when Neil says, I am more likely to be liberal and you are more likely to be conservative, you and I agree on everything we've talked about.
Yeah.
Like we get along really well.
And I'm going to tell you, I'm here to be convinced. I'm not the guy that, like, listen, there's some things I believe strongly in and I've lived through, and my belief is based on, like, I'm going to tell you to work 100 hours a week, right? Because that's what I did.
Yeah.
That's how I know to do it.
Right.
Like, if you got some magical way to do it, then do that, right? But make sure it's proven, right? Like, don't take advice from people that aren't where you want to be in life. Like, if your mom and dad, your family, your brothers, your cousins, like when you go to Thanksgiving, you get Christmas coming up. Everybody's got Christmas. Probably when this comes out, you're going to be at some Christmas event, okay? It's great.
I'll be here, by the way.
I want you to know that your family is always, just like social media, they're going to put their best foot forward. They're never going to tell you the real struggles typically. They're going to tell you the best of the best. They're going to give you the stock tips. They're going to give you the crypto tips. You know, they're going to give you all the positives that are happening in their life and all the ways that they're doing things the right way, especially if these are people you don't see regularly, right? You need to, that's white noise, right? You need to look at where they are really, right? And you know who they are. You know these people. You know what type of life they've lived. And you need to say, is this someone I should really take advice from, right? And if you get advice from somebody that's in a better position, that doesn't mean you have to follow it to the T, but you should take it under strong advisement.
Even if it's what I always said with comedy, creativity, and art, if somebody way ahead of me or way below me gives me advice, I can take it and use it in one way or the other.
Yeah.
I can use it and say, well, I'm going to do that, or I can take it and use it and say, that is a thing I'm going to avoid.
Exactly.
It is valuable one way or the other.
I love see somebody mess up because I go, it's a reminder to me that this is not the type of behavior.
Why are we
I
so
need.
afraid of that
Yeah.
shit? We're so afraid of fucking up. And so, I'm putting this show together on the other side. And, my mind constantly goes to, well, what if it's bad? It's fucking for sure going to be bad.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, there's going to be bad parts of it. And that's what growth feels like.
That's part of the fun.
It is, right?
Go back and watch one of Rogan's first episodes.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they're good, but they're nowhere near
Well,
what
garbage,
they're.
yeah.
Yeah, man. I mean, like,
I mean, when I started comedy, I was pretty. I'm who knows what I am now, but I am definitely better than I was the day I started.
Look at our first episode.
Neil's got a.
Look at our episodes now.
Neil's got an acting thing that he did. Now, listen, he had been training for a while, but this is new to me. One of the very first acting things he showed me, I was kind of like, oh, it's kind of rough, but it was
bad.
good compared to what I could do. I was impressed
Sure.
on that level, but I was like, oh man, I'm just not sure because I'm comparing to TV,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
The studio quality is not the same. The production quality rather is not the same.
the reps, the time hasn't been
I mean,
done.
like
Yeah.
but like
Time.
if you look at it, and then it's funny though to see over time him progress and be like, wow, you nailed that, and like literally be like, okay, there's some things he's done that go, I can see that on TV,
If you look back at,
and I have seen him on TV.
if you look back at, if I look back at the first few times I've done comedy, and I'm really proud of it, I promise you I haven't grown worth a shit.
Yeah, I agree.
I look
Yeah.
back and I fucking hate it. I'm embarrassed to show
Yeah.
people that thing.
Yeah.
I look forward to me, you, all of us having conversations about something that we
Yes.
did. It's gonna be fun.
Yeah, man.
It'll be good
Yeah.
memories.
It's I like being. We were talking about this before we started on here today. I like being proven wrong. It's that's the only time I'm for sure knowing that I'm learning. It's when someone disproves a thing, I thought, holy shit. You know what I mean? I just learned a new thing.
That's what I was talking about earlier. Is that that's the problem with censorship. Everybody needs to be in the conversation. Even the hate-filled, awful assholes that are just the drudge of society. They still need to be able to say what they want to say, even if it's awful and terrible.
Well, how else are we going to fucking identify?
I agree.
You know what I mean?
agree. Yeah.
So,
All of this to say
I
that
hope they
Taylor
say it
Swift's new
loud.
album is amazing.
Bro,
but if you're
we got to come back to Taylor in a minute. I got something. There's a big thing that's going to happen.
if you have two groups of people and you're trying to figure something out, and this side's saying yes, this side's saying no,
Screaming it.
and they're all screaming it at the same time, it's just gibberish when it's all at once.
Yeah.
But eventually, some of the yeses start to become no's, and some of the no's start to become yeses, and they start to figure it out. And eventually, it'll start to sway all to one side or the other. And eventually, you will either hear mostly yes or mostly no, and that's because they're all learning. And when you're having a conversation with someone, I told him I was watching a Jordan Peterson debate or conversation, and he was talking about how he was in a debate with what's his name, the neuroscientist, Sam Harris.
Sam Harris.
Yeah.
He was having a long, lengthy debate with Sam Harris about a lot of ideas, and he talked about how difficult that was and how painful that was. But he said it was really painful because they were really trying to learn something.
Yeah,
And-
I would love a good debate, but
Yeah.
not one that's attacking.
No,
Like,
just-
I think that's a
You're
it's kind of
challenging ideas.
exactly.
it's kind of what we've done
Yeah.
over the last hour, right?
Right, yeah.
Talking
Yeah.
about the conservative liberal
Yeah.
thing, right? Like having
Yeah.
different opinions.
I-
If you're not in the conversation, how are you going to learn?
Yeah,
You can't.
I agree.
That's
And
what
so
we're doing. We're
I want
figuring
to
out
point out
things.
something that's really funny that happens, by the way. And I mean, I don't know statistically how accurate this is, but I've seen it over and over and over again. Take someone with one set of beliefs, put them around. Let's say that somebody has all these beliefs about money and life and these things, and then it's really interesting. Give them money and watch their belief change.
Yeah.
And you don't give them money, actually. What I mean by that, give is a poor choice of words there.
Give them opportunity or success.
Give them opportunity. They earn the money. They increase their status in life. They move, status financially, and their beliefs change, right? Because now they've got something to lose.
You can watch a poor Democrat become a rich Republican.
100%. Well, and I hate to put it in that box, but
No, I know.
But so we were saying something earlier, and I want to come back to this too really quick.
Well, I think that made me think about something I was trying to say with the conservatives and liberals. So, so me personally, I'm all about prosperity and success and hard work and setting goals, reaching goals.
Yep.
But I also have this thing about me that leans more to the left, where I care about people that are disenfranchised, and I also feel like, or I believe that our society is not a healthy society, and that we have the ability, we have the resources to create a society where everyone participates in the society, and we encourage. We incentivize participation in society, so you eliminate poverty, and there's no lower class in society. I don't agree with income equality. I think that's a trap, and I think that's part of that comes from.
You don't believe in equal outcome,
right? Yeah, it's nonsense.
Without equal input.
Income equality is nonsense because.
But that conversation starts for you way before, because your ideas on the financial system in general are that it's. Not structured properly, right?
Yeah, exactly. And you can't.
I would say
you
don't agree in equal outcome once you pass a certain point, because I think on some point, some narrative, you do agree on equal income, because you're saying you want a floor of X. So I would disagree with you slightly.
Well,
you think everybody should have at minimum the same thing up to a point. Let's call that 120 grand a year, whatever number you've used previously.
Not exactly, because
And I'm not saying I agree with that.
No,
I'm saying that's what you said.
Fucking language.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Just here's the idea, man.
But that's what I'm saying. The conversation starts previous. You have to define what money and the structure is to you before you can get to this point.
What I mean by
it's a nuanced conversation.
By equality or income equality is we're not all the same. You want
the same floor.
Not even the same floor.
Basic needs.
Well, you want the basic needs. Yes.
No one is
starving.
There's no poverty. So my point is
that's it. You have to eliminate poverty first.
So you look at it, you don't want to damage the machines that run the society. So like the businesses are machines. They're just mindless machines that do what they do. They produce services and products, and they have to do it well. And if they do a good job, they get rewarded for whatever they're doing. And you want those things to run smoothly. You don't want to start overtaxing these machines or start raising wages in these machines, because you're just throwing sand into the machine and you're slowing it down. Yeah. You're making it inefficient. That's not what you want to do. That's actually counterproductive, and that's more of a tyrannical based power construct. So you really want a society where we reevaluate the currency and our monetary system, so we have an abundance of that. And then you want to create a society it incentivizes people to run the machines. So you can say collectively, if you're a part of the tax code, so you reevaluate the value of the currency, because it's always been based on different things. We just need to change the way we evaluate the currency, evaluate it on people's basic needs, on the part of the planet that we inhabit, all these different things that makes it more valuable, and it makes it appreciate in value, and even use maybe cryptocurrencies as part of that equation. And then you incentivize people. You say, if you're a part of the tax code, you're working however many hours you work a week, our society will give you $100 an hour or $150 an hour, or the equivalent of that, through however our monetary system changes, based on however many hours you're working a week throughout a year. So then, because your cashier, and here's where you have income inequality, your cashier should never make as much money as your doctor.
Yeah,
it doesn't make any sense. Those jobs aren't they're not equal in value. They're equal in importance. You equally need the janitor or the cashier as much as you need the lawyer or the doctor.
I think more people can qualify to be the cashier
than
they can the doctor, because it takes more.
It's not as
you have to delay gratification for longer to become a doctor.
Well, there's also less purpose involved.
So there's got to be some incentive, a carrot, to becoming a doctor. Right? So, if the doctor paid the same thing the cashier paid, then we would have a whole bunch of cashiers and no doctors.
Right. Yeah. But
so this is the problem. We have an incentivized economy. We're all incentivized. We're all human nature is we're incentivized by things, right? So how do you create equal outcome without disincentivizing people?
You don't need equal outcome.
No. I'm playing devil's advocate.
Oh, you can't.
You can't.
It's impossible.
Right?
You'll collapse the society.
I think that you have a lot of people that say, "Why would I ever go to law school?
It equals
Why would I ever go to med
suffering
school?"
and misery and death.
Now, only people that are passionate about those things would still pursue it.
Right.
Now,
yeah.
devil's
But
advocate.
Which you can
but
make.
even then-
I could be devil's advocate and say that those are the people you should have in those positions.
Very true, but
You
we
should
may
only
not
have
have enough of them.
We may
A
not
doctor
need-
that hates his job,
Well-
that is well trained,
But
he might still be.
in
Here's
this
the other argument to
in
that.
this situation, you would need less of those people.
That's true. Let me ask you this:
But
is
you
this
also-
where religion came from? Like, is this type of conversation thousands of years ago where organized religion came from, where people said, "Hey, these are our beliefs, and these are the ways we think we should live our life, and this is how it." I mean, you see what I'm saying? Like,
I think religion came from psychedelics, probably, but
Well-
I think organized religion came from power.
Yes, I would agree with both of those.
Yeah.
There's a great bit called by Patton Oswalt. It's called Sky Cake. I highly recommend everybody look that fucking thing up. It's basically the religion was come up with by the meek to keep the powerful from
Killing them.
raping, fucking, and killing them constantly. Like, oh, if you behave yourself, there is cake in the sky that you can get after you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then I think all the texts were written by people with psychedelics. Yeah.
All right.
Probably, yeah.
So real quick, before we get too far, we talked about earlier on. We were talking about decisions and how do you make the right decision.
Yes.
Right. You were saying how do you put yourself in that mindset, and I think it's very important to make this. I hate to what's it called? Call
Circle
back. To circle back to this a long ways ago, but this is important. I think the mindset of the individual acquiring wealth is different and has to be different than the mindset of the individual that's trying to maintain wealth. And so this is a good way to look at this. If you're an athlete, think about you're a basketball player. And let's say that you are the best basketball player in the world and you're shooting free throws and you've made 40 in a row. Imagine that every time you make a free throw, the number that you risk goes up. So you're at number 40 and you're going to go to 41. And 41, if you miss, you lose every single dollar you have. Right? Every time you make one, if you miss the next, the consequence is greater than everything you've ever accomplished. That's a problem because the 41st shot, if you missed, would erase all the good that the first 40 did. Right?
Good thing you're good at free throws.
Right. But this is why you don't risk it all. Right? So I think once you acquire something, the number one rule that Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger have is don't lose money. The rule number 2 is referred to rule number 1. Okay, and this is literally what they say, what they've said for years. Because once you have something to risk, you have to make sure they're more worried about return of capital, return of their initial investment, than they are return on capital.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So step 1 is don't lose money. So I think we were talking about this earlier, like how do you get yourself in that mindset? I think the mindset of coming from a cool, calm, collected place, making as rational decisions as possible, as least emotional decisions as possible, emotions involved in everything, comes from that mentality of what point are you in at life? And if you're at a point where the biggest thing is don't lose what you've got, don't lose your capital, then you have to make a decision first from that point. Like, I'm more worried about a return on the investment, the return of the investment rather than the return on the investment. Mm-hmm. And so I think getting yourself, there's rules, there's hard, fast, steadfast rules like this that I think if you put yourself in that mindset and go, wait a second, if I can make millions of dollars, great. But if the risk is that I miss the 41st shot and I lose everything I've got, the risk is too great. And this is the mistake that I made. And a lot of factors happen beyond my control, but the reality is I had everything at risk. At any one point, one bad shot could lose everything, and I made that mistake. So if we're trying to really simplify it down, make sure the shots you take don't risk everything.
And you see, that's why I say that you're more of a conservative person. You're predisposed to being conservative because you're good at structuring things. Like
Right.
Your mind just works that way. And when I watch you do it, it's brilliant. Like it's incredible to watch you think.
Right.
But most people, not most people, but a lot of people aren't like that. And that's why, number one, that's why there's income inequality, and that's fine.
Right.
But we just shouldn't have poverty. We should
I agree
restructure the
with that.
system where you can have, and also I think a lot more people are like you. They don't realize it because they're just trying to survive. A
Right.
lot of people are trying to get ahead, but the system is kind of structured where they can't, or it's very difficult to get ahead. If you get to Warren Buffett's level, you can't lose unless you're just a complete idiot.
Yeah.
Because if you're at that level,
And he got to that
everything's
level
free.
based on that rule, which was
Well,
I'm more
It's
worried about
bankroll
return of-
management.
Well, it's also based on how the tax code is, how our whole system works. It's designed. If you're a billionaire, you should only be
Now,
accumulating wealth.
Let me ask you this question, though. Devil's advocate, for all those out there on some level, when you're a conscious being, you're here. At some point, when you're no longer a child, see, childhood stops for children for many different reasons, and I hate that that's taken from them. The childhood being taken away that I'm going to speak to is the one where you're carefree, related to finance, related to you're unaware of things cost.
Yeah.
Right? Let's say that that's taken from you at an early age, right? At that point, I would say that we spend the rest of our life worried about money on some level.
That was about 5 years old for me.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. But whatever that number is, right? And you go, okay, you're worried about creating a den. You're worried about creating a home. You're worried about creating something. First is, I need to eat. I need to have a place to put my head, right?
Yeah.
And then you have somebody you love, maybe, and you have children, maybe.
I think first is love.
Right? But, well, you got to eat first, right?
But you got
to be able to find the mate, right?
But you could be hungry and still be happy if you're loved, right?
I'm saying go all the way back. Your first thing as a child, if you're starving, is to eat.
Well, yeah, for sure.
Is not
if
to
you're
find
starving,
is not to find a wife. So we got to take care of human needs, and then one of those is maybe love. One of those is a companion, right? Security, right?
Yeah.
But you start planning these things. When you think about it, the system is designed for you not to lose once you acquire, because that's the way we feel. Like, we want to know that we can work really hard, and if we do, that we can be secure for the rest of our lives. I can have my cave that I'm living in, or my tent, or whatever it is, right? This dwelling, this domicile, and then guess what? My children, like for me, I went to my parents' garage. Guess what? I had a roof over my head. I had food in my belly, right? So we create a floor for people, right? So I think the reason the tax code is the way it is because you shouldn't spend a lifetime making billions. And really, he made billions by helping other people make millions and billions of dollars. But you shouldn't spend a lifetime doing that and then be able to be taxed to zero.
No,
I think most people would agree with that. I don't think that means we agree with everything in the tax code. I just think that we would all agree that, hey, if we delay gratification, well, there should be some reward. You should get the cake in the sky.
Yeah, but
if you go to med school, you should get something.
Here's the thing: you don't have to change. We could restructure the society, and the people that are billionaires now would just become more successful.
Well, this is the other thing I was going to say earlier when you were talking about party systems. I really don't give a shit, because whoever's in control, I don't care. I'm going to play by whatever set of rules. Like, if let's say that I can no longer sell whatever widget I'm selling, and instead, let's say it's all what's a good word? I don't know. Like, pick one, like, far left. Let's pick some far left, like AOC. Let's say she has these supposed crazy ideas, right? Pick one of her ideas, and you know what? If that's the way that the world has to work,
well, there's a problem. There is a problem with that, though. I'm
just going to dial in and be like, okay, that's fine. I'm going to do whatever her rules are and figure out how to succeed in that environment.
If it goes too far either way, right or left, you end up with a tyrannical society.
Oh, I agree with that.
Well,
I'm
sure.
saying,
and then I'm
saying I'm going to survive no matter what.
Yeah, his point is know the rules so you can
adapt to them.
Adapt.
Yeah, so on some level, unless it goes too far, and if it goes too far, and I hate to say this point because it sounds threatening, it's not meant to be that way. I think there's actually like 90 million gun owners in the United States. 90 million.
That's true. Yeah.
Okay. If it goes too far, you got 90 million problems. Right?
Yeah.
So the people that I would make this statement, maybe it's wrong. The people that have the greatest propensity to be violent, the potential to be violent, the greatest physical ability, typically, I would think, this is probably a bad statement, are Republican. Like, I would think that more military people, right? People that are violent, people that fight, I would think they lean more towards that side.
I don't know, man.
Well, I guess, even without labels, we can just say that if you own a vehicle, you are more likely to be in a car wreck.
Yeah, I would say.
What I'm saying is if you push too far to one side or the other.
In their
let's take it this way, though.
Process,
let's take all those people with weapons that they decide they're going to take over the world. And I'm one of those people. But let's just say that we did that. The other side eventually will have a reactive force that will come. They're going to stand up and fight for their rights, right? So I feel like if you go to any one extreme, it causes this massive issue. But that's not really what I was talking about. What I was saying is that
you're saying as long as it stays somewhere where it's at right now.
Biden's in power, I'm still getting my money. Trump is in power, still get my money. Whoever the next president, Clinton was in power, still get my money. I was in middle school, still getting my money, regardless of who was president.
But see, what I think though is, and I'm confident this is true, is if we restructure the society, we could all do way better, because you don't. having a free market society is a good thing. And
do you think people all want the same thing?
Well, I think at the end of the day, we all do want basically the same thing. We all want love and family and
Asheville has some of these people
and basic needs.
They have people that are homeless but aren't traditional homeless. They're called some people call them drifters.
Yeah.
So imagine that you don't want to pay anything to live.
A lot of that is mental illness too, though.
But there's some that do it voluntarily, right?
Sure. Yeah, and that's fine. Yeah, there's hippies.
Maybe we create we'll call them communes, but we create these areas, these massive land masses, and we just say you can live here for free if you'd like, live off the land.
Well, I think if we just restructure the way I'd like to restructure the society, that's not a problem. If somebody wants to do that, they can do it, and they can do it with no problem.
Yeah.
So right now we have an issue with filling entry-level jobs. People don't want to work these entry-level jobs. They're shitty jobs. There's no purpose when you're a cashier. There's a purpose for that machine to operate and needs a cashier.
Yeah.
But personally, individually, there's no purpose in that job. If you're a cashier or a janitor or something, you have one of these. You're basically a machine that's running a part of the machine. You know, the doctor actually has purpose. That doctor has educated themselves. They've learned about that practice, about that trade. And they're helping people. They're doing something that they feel passionate about. But these entry-level jobs are not jobs of purpose. They're jobs of necessity. And I think, and you don't want to. So the easiest jobs to obtain are the jobs that people want the least. They're the entry-level jobs. So if you create a society that's based on incentive and incentivizing people to be a part of the system, then you'll fill those jobs instantly. So if you say, however many hours you work in the tax code, you'll receive $100 an hour from us, from the society. That's all of us, you and me both included, no matter what level you are in society. And so then you can say, okay, well, a cashier, they could work 20 hours a week, make $2,000 a week. They're making $100,000 a year as a cashier. That cashier job's always going to be filled because people will line up to take those jobs.
I got to play devil's advocate, though.
And if you work 20 hours a week,
that was impressive.
If you work 20 hours a week and you're making $2,000 a week, then you've got all your basic needs. You've got a decent place to live. You have transportation. You have all your medical needs. You have all your basic needs, and then you have time to figure out what it is that you actually do care about and you are passionate about.
To find your purpose.
So you can find your purpose.
Or that goes into.
See, I'm not smart enough to fully explain this, but I think you're wrong because of inflation.
No, it's your money is an appreciating asset.
Yeah, but right now
there is no inflation.
But hold on, right now in the world, in the United States, everybody on average makes more than they did a year ago. Sure. The people that are working are making more.
Well,
statistically, it's proven.
Yeah, right? But now with the current situation,
point.
It may have changed.
If it costs more to pay people, it costs more for those products and services that they deliver. So really, the net effect is the same, which is the same argument you and I have made for years. You can raise minimum wage all you want. I'm just going to raise my price.
It fixes that problem, and I'll tell you why.
I don't see how, though.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Because if everybody's got $100,000, everybody's going to go out and spend things that cost $100,000, which means there's less of those things.
That's why we may want to use cryptocurrencies for certain needs.
All right, so
cryptocurrencies for food, for medical.
There's a finite amount of things, right? So let's say we're buying a physical thing, a Lamborghini. There's 10,000 of them. If everybody can afford a Lamborghini, guess what happens to the price of Lamborghini? They have to go up.
Actually, it goes down.
It can't. There's only 10,000 of them. If it goes down,
well,
only 10,000 people can own one.
If you can only make a certain number of them.
There's billions of people.
But you can have more companies that make Lamborghinis.
Yeah, but they're not called a Lamborghini.
It'll be something the equivalent.
It does not eliminate supply and demand.
Well, here's the idea, though. The idea is...
I get where you're at. I'm saying it doesn't take all things into consideration.
Well...
How about Eric? The supply for him, because we value his comedy, is very high, and he's rewarded because millions of people want to listen to his comedy. But there's only one of him. Money will flow to him because of that.
Well, it's sort of a decentralizing effect, though. You're seeing that with
Fingers crossed.
art.
It's going to happen.
So you're seeing, you don't see like one.
I'm raising my
Eddie
prices.
Murphy now. You'll have 1,000 Eddie Murphys, and there's an audience for all 1,000 of those.
And all 1,000 of them are going to be filthy rich. I agree with what you're saying.
They can all be very wealthy.
That doesn't have anything to do with supply and demand, though.
But also,
it's how do you implement this idea that?
Well, here's the supply and demand part. So you're creating a society that's more productive. right? So you're creating a society that participates more, and it's also more productive. So the idea is that, and also you've changed the evaluation of the currency. The currency is much more valuable. So the currency is based on the cost of a. It's based on all the things it's currently based on, the GDP of businesses and the banks and all these things that we currently base our currency on. But it's also based on the needs of the people. What are the basic needs of the individuals of the society? What are those worth?
Right.
And that's part of the equation. And also, what is our portion of the planet worth? Like, what resources do we sit on top of, and are we adding to as we become more advanced technologically, and we add to the planet? It increases in value. So our money should also increase in value. It should be an appreciating asset. And then we could even create a finite amount of it. If you don't want it to inflate, you just create a finite amount of it. You just have so much of it, you won't run out of it.
Right.
Now, you do have issues with pricing and stuff like that. You have to...
It's very complex. I get it.
But you have a more intelligent society to monitor the prices. Right now, it's the same thing Jordan Peterson said about global warming. You know, you have these global warming debates. Well, yeah, sure, global warming is a big problem. It's a huge issue, but nobody is talking about solutions. They're just arguing about this problem.
I agree.
And the best way to solve that problem is to increase the prosperity of the societies. You increase the global GDP of the world, people start doing better. They start caring more about they care more about the climate. They care more about the planet. They want to solve the problem.
Well, are there any good micro examples of the idea that you're trying to verbalize here?
Well,
is there anything that we can look at to?
It is happening. So, like all the GDPs of the world are going up, so the poverty is decreasing rapidly. Like, I think something like 100,000 people come out of extreme poverty a week in the world.
Yep.
So it's
those the people that are just being born.
Yeah, probably.
Well, it's
that's
people
more than
that didn't have food that suddenly have food.
But what about the best things in life are free? What's that song?
The best things in life.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Let me ask you this. So this, again, devil's advocate here. So I tried to really, I've spent a lot of time, Neil and I have talked about this extensively.
Yeah.
And I can afford, I'm going to say, pretty much everything that I want now.
Yeah, of course.
I don't know of anything that I can't, right? Now, let me
for everything that you need.
Yeah, but now what I'm figuring out is that actually most of the things that I enjoy I can get for free. The difference is that I want to own a piece of it. And so what does that mean? Really what it is that it's inconvenient to go to the beach and park at public parking and to go out on a public beach and deal with crowds and traffic and maybe other people that don't share the same respect for the beach that I do. So it's inconvenient, which means I need my own slice of the beach. Otherwise, I can just use the beach for free. It doesn't cost me anything. So I want to be at the beach. That's part of in the Gulf Coast specifically, and I can go use that beach for free. It doesn't cost anything. If I want to own a piece of it, it costs millions, right? Yeah. But above that, I can go use the beach for free. I can go to the mountains and live a peaceful life for free. It's public land. I can do it all day long. Many things in life that people spend their life sacrificing for, they can get for free today. And so I've spent a tremendous amount of time thinking about this, and it's like, I don't want to live for free because I like having things to do and I like having purpose. And then I want a piece of the mountains, not because I don't want other people to have it, but just because I want to enjoy the mountains the way that I want to.
It's something to be proud of too. You've accomplished something, and with my idea that doesn't change.
Well, what I'm saying is,
you still have that. It's just more.
If money is irrelevant,
well, money's still relevant.
Well, it's not because everybody has the same amount.
No, they don't. They don't. They don't have the same amount. You just don't have poverty. So you could.
If you don't have the same amount, then how does everybody have the same pay?
Well, you don't. You have the same incentive, but you don't have the same pay. You still have to work. So
if you don't eliminate supply and demand issues, so if everybody can afford a Lamborghini, everybody has the same money.
So that's why everybody can't afford a Lamborghini. So
no. But you said earlier everybody can have a Lamborghini.
No, I didn't. You said that. I was just saying if they all happen to get that successful, then that would be a different thing. But
no, what I was saying is there's only 10,000. There's a finite number.
A lot more people would be able to afford Lamborghinis,
which would cause the price to go up because there's only 10,000.
It would also cause the innovation to go up.
But then the base level would be just a nice vehicle.
Yeah, you would end up having like Lamborghini spaceships that cost $10 million.
Right.
So there'd be 10,000 Lamborghini
Right.
spaceships.
So, and this proves the point I was trying to get to,
complexity.
which means the guy that makes $100 an hour is back being the guy that makes $8 an hour minimum wage.
No, he's not, because he's
He
not
can't
poor.
afford the Lamborghini spaceship.
It doesn't matter. He doesn't have to. You have to earn the Lamborghini spaceship.
That's true today. He doesn't have to own a Lamborghini.
No, but
the sentence he has to earn the Lamborghini spaceship is my
he
favorite.
doesn't.
I love that, actually.
He
Yeah.
doesn't need the Lamborghini.
He doesn't need the Lamborghini
He
today.
needs food and the house and transportation and,
I agree
and
with that.
medical and all these things. And he also needs he or she people need the ability to figure out what their purpose is in life.
I agree
And
with
maybe
that.
their purpose is to be a cashier and play video games, and they can do that comfortably.
Do cashiers play video games today?
But I'm sure. But I'm just
And most of them aren't starving.
most cashiers their lives are probably pretty
No, I mean, but they're eating.
not healthy.
What I'm
Yeah.
saying is, what you envision is a future in which cashiers make enough to not starve and not own Lamborghini spaceships. And I'm saying
That's not my vision. My vision is to create a society where we find the potential in everybody. We squeeze the potential out of the whole society. So instead of having, there's 330 million people in the country.
Yeah, in the U.S.,
right?
yeah.
In the U.S. and I don't know. All right, what?
95% of the global warming comes from outside the U.S., by the way, from your point earlier. So
I'm
we're
sure,
all
yeah.
arguing politically about stuff that we have a 5%.
Well, it's a good
impact
example.
on.
The better the society does, the more they solve problems.
Yeah.
So you eliminate poverty, and maybe you find, a million more geniuses.
Yeah.
And those geniuses figure out what they have the resources to invest the time in the things that they're passionate about, and they start solving problems and innovating. So you
Yeah.
create a more innovative society. So jobs like cashier jobs are really supposed to be entry-level jobs. They shouldn't be careers. But now people can get those jobs. They work 20 hours a week doing some shitty job that they don't mind anymore because there's a lot of incentive to do that job. And then they spend 100 hours a week figuring out what they're good at. Maybe it's going back to school, educating themselves on a trade or something that they care about, or they spend it doing art or doing something else that they like, they're passionate about. And you're encouraging people to find the things that they're good at so
Yeah.
we can push them in that direction.
Let me ask you this. Again, devil's advocate here. Do you believe that negative interest rates are possible? Do you know what that is?
Not really.
All right, so negative interest rate means that you go put your money in the bank and the bank charges you interest to hold it.
Sure.
Meaning
yeah, that makes sense.
instead of you earning 1%, the bank starts charging you to hold their money.
Yeah.
It's deflationary money, right? So
Right,
your
yeah.
money is becoming deflation. So this could be a very real thing, by the way, that's coming because interest rates, everybody's like, oh, interest can't go below zero. Well, it can.
It can.
It's a negative interest rate. So what
There's
actually
a 0%
happens,
interest rate and there's fees, you're negative.
you're negative, right? So
Yeah.
what's actually probably going to happen is that the money you have is going to be charged. So when you put it in a bank, you're going to pay. And then you have fees to move that money, merchant processing fees, right? Crypto still has burn rate and burn fees. It's much less, much more efficient. So imagine we have negative interest rates possible, and then take some of the things that you're applying and think about it the other way, flip it on its head. Is it possible that when you wake up, when you're born into debt and a life of servitude, and you have to work your 20 hours a week because you owe that to the government,
No,
to society.
because that would be if
and then that's how
what-
you get your food and drink. So I mean, like,
that's what happens when you have income equality.
right? What I'm saying is
That's
is
socialism.
That all we have to do is change one or two things, and that's what you're describing. Right?
No, it's not though, because you're what I'm describing is either you have a system where you create a finite amount of currency and it's based on these certain things. So the currency in
the system I'm describing is no
do that,
currency.
though,
It's
because-
basically you have to work these 20 hours a week. In exchange for these 20 hours a week, you get all the food you can eat. You get a roof over your head.
No. So you don't mess up the system. The free market system works the way it works, and so you're taking the burden off the businesses. So especially small businesses. So a good example is during the quarantine shutdowns. All the most powerful companies bought up all the assets of the small businesses. When they went out of business, these large corporations took up. They vacuumed up all these opportunities and all this, all the loss of these smaller businesses
Yeah.
because those businesses were too burdened to handle
they were on sale.
the impact of the shutdown.
Right.
But the billion-dollar companies, it didn't bother. It was like a vacation for them. They're like, oh, this is investment time. The stocks are down. Let's buy all this shit
dip.
up. Yeah, buy
100%.
the dip. Yeah, and then so with what I'm saying is if you keep raising minimum wage, you're crushing small businesses and you're empowering large corporations. But if what I'm doing, we're agreeing collectively as a society, we're reevaluating our money, so we have an abundance of money,
Right.
And our money actually becomes an appreciating asset. It's actually increasing in value, and we're looking at businesses as machines that have to operate sufficiently and efficiently. And you're saying if this business can only pay a certain job or a certain position $12 an hour, that's what they pay. But this person gladly does it because they're incentivized through our society to do that job or do any job. I don't care what you do as long as you're doing something.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And
I'm
then
just
you're
curious
creating innovation in the society. Eventually, you probably reach a level where money doesn't even matter.
This is what I'm getting at, though. So, like, if the job pays $15 an hour and the government's going to pay the other $85,
We know it's 100.
right? Yeah. So it's
Say
$100
everybody
an
gets
hour.
$100 an hour for however many hours you work.
Yeah. So,
And so someone like me and you, if we were 18, we'd be working 100 hours a week,
Yeah,
saving
sure,
up
sure.
a shitload of money so
I
we
agree.
can start a business.
No, I agree. Whatever the
Yeah.
rules are, I agree. If I go somewhere in the average, if I go to live in New York, I agree with that. I agree with that completely.
Yeah.
Where I'm struggling is understanding what you're saying completely is if the pay rate would it be $15, but we're going to pay $100 instead. Who's paying the other $85?
No, it's not. So the cashier job's $12 an hour.
Right.
That's all that business is going to
The
pay.
government's going to give them $2,000 a week.
But the government gives them $100 per hour they work in the tax
It's a
system.
subsidy.
It's a subsidy. It's
Right,
an
so-
incentive
So hold on, here we go. So where does the $100 come from?
because it's already built into the equation of the money.
It has to come from somewhere, though.
It's already built into the value of the money. The currency, part of the value of the currency is based on everybody in the society's basic human needs.
All right, so if it's
so when
built
someone's
in-
born into the society, our currency increases in value.
All right.
It's
What's the first step of implementation of this?
So let's just add a zero to everybody's hourly pay, or 2 zeros, and it accomplishes it. But on some level,
well, not really, because it's more like
If
more like
everybody-
a bonus check.
I think that's
from the
the
government.
sticking point is where does the
let's-
money come from? Where's
let's say
the
that we
implementation?
just value it based off the things you're saying, right?
Yeah.
Here's where I'm really struggling with this. Is that let's say I go to a market, like let's say New York or California, and in New York or California, maybe this will help explain what I'm trying to say. I'm not doing a good job. In California, there are houses that are selling for $4 million that here in North Carolina, and let's say Asheboro specifically, would be more like $180,000. Okay? My point here is that income in California is through the roof compared to Asheboro, North Carolina. And because of that, the cost of living is also through the roof.
Well-
and the house that's there for $4 million is $180,000 here.
Yeah.
So how do you stop the cost of everything just going up in comparison to the
I
increase?
think about that too, and I don't
That's
know
where I'm saying
the
that-
exact solution to that, but I think some of that is going to be in a more educated society.
So I think that racing to zero is easier than racing to $100 an hour, because if we merely raise the amount people make, then all that happens, the correlation of that is that the things that cost go up as well. So if we bring everything to zero, like
Maybe. I mean,
interest,
the free market brings prices down. You
and
know,
this is all hypothetical, by the
You
way.
know what I mean?
All of
like-
this is hypothetical.
Yeah. But I'm saying, imagine everything's free, though.
What's-
Like, let's say that
it's not
food is free.
Free.
I'm saying, what if it was? What if food is free?
Then it's problematic because you have to have incentive to work for it.
No, not well.
You have to.
I agree. The system,
Otherwise, people won't do anything,
Does
and
this-
everything collapses.
does the system we have incentivize people to work for food?
I mean, yeah, it does, but I think it also incentivizes people to not figure out what they're good at.
But there are also people that are still starving. So I mean, I think we
But I
also
think
have to account for
there
those
does,
people.
You don't,
Where's
you don't
the
have
middle
to have
ground?
that, though.
Where's the middle ground in the perspective both of you have on this?
I don't know. Yeah, I'm curious. Yeah,
I don't.
is it okay to starve if you want to starve?
If you want to, yeah,
Is it okay to be homeless if you choose to be homeless?
sure, yeah.
So we're trying to solve something that some people are choosing the path.
But
they're
I'm
on.
not worried about the people that want to be homeless. I'm worried about
They'll be free to do that.
right.
Yeah.
And honestly, the people that want to be homeless, if they had a different childhood, they probably won't be homeless.
Yeah, that takes generations to fix.
Not really.
Everybody that's alive right now.
2 generations of society can be enveloped in complete tyranny.
Yeah. I'll agree with that.
And vice versa.
Yeah, but so you're talking about 100,000 people a week are coming out of poverty today. We're incrementally moving towards what you're talking about, a better world.
We are. Yeah, I mean,
what you just said though also is that we're going to go fast forward.
I'm just saying
70,
we
80
could
years
do it
to get more generations.
We could do it instantaneously today.
Well, I mean,
I don't think you can solve the problems today.
That goes to what you talk about with things being exponential, technology being exponential. The next 10 years is going to look like the last 80 years, right? And
I agree with that.
100 years. And so,
the next 10 years will be 100 years in advancement.
Yeah.
Right.
So show someone in 2021 an iPhone 13
from
today.
Yeah.
So
it'd be like showing it to the one at 1920.
No, I'm just saying the technology will be that much more advanced by 2031. Like it'll just
so
be
if that is
mind-blowing.
True, which I think we mostly agree on, then the things you're talking about will almost have to happen in the next 10 years, right? We have to lean towards that. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen.
I'm going to be a smart ass for just a second. This is terrible. I do not.
You would never do
I'm
that.
not encouraged.
Why stop now?
I have been accused of being insensitive many times in my life. Sorry, Mom. But let me just, again, I'm playing devil's advocate here. More so not disagreeing with you just because I'm enjoying the conversation.
It's important questions.
Hopefully other people are enjoying the conversation, but I'm enjoying the damn conversation, and that's all that fucking matters because I'm self-centered apparently.
It's because you're a conservative.
That's because I'm fucking conservatives. Now, I shouldn't do this. But
I'm over here trying to help the disenfranchised.
I'm going to do it. Let me ask you something. Slaves ate for free.
Well, I mean,
are you creating a nation of slaves by saying that we have to do what the government says so that we can get our meal?
It's not. You have to do.
No, they didn't.
No,
I'm saying by this same logic, slaves ate for free because they had to work, but in exchange for that work, they had a roof over their head and they had food in their belly because they had to be strong enough to work.
But what you're talking about is more of a socialist or communist society. You don't want that.
I agree with that. That's what I'm saying. But what you're describing, does that not take us down that path?
It doesn't, because you're not saying that you can't own. So you still have freedom of speech. You still have all the rights that we have today. You're just fixing the monetary system.
You just have to show up 20 hours a week.
We do this kind of stuff anyway.
No, I agree completely.
We already have programs for fire and police and education. You have grants and stuff like that.
Sure. So but somebody's paying for those.
And in some ways, the grants have caused the problems with colleges. That's why they're so expensive.
Is that where?
So there is a problem. I agree with you. You have to worry about people trying to just artificially inflate prices.
So I think
now people have money. We can sell this shit for more money. We make more money.
So what's going on right now?
I think what Daniel maybe is hung up on, correct me if I'm wrong, is who pays for it.
Well,
where does the subsidy come from?
I think that somebody in Africa one day sold slavery as an idea, a concept. Like, we're going to take you to the New World. And you live in squalor, right? And you live in the jungle, or you live in the desert, and you're uneducated. You're decent. Like, imagine this.
Well, slavery is more like war criminals or war.
But imagine the slick salesperson selling these people into slavery. Like you're telling, because why didn't they just fight tooth and nail and all die fighting to come over? They were probably sold a line of fake goods, right? They were sold a fake story.
They were victims of war, though. They were from societies. Like
they
the
come
Spanish
over
would conquer
and they
groups
go,
of people. And
why are you so upset? You've got food, you've got a house, you've got a place to live. You're not starving.
But that's more like socialism.
No, I agree, but that's what I'm saying. Yeah. It's borderline.
But no, it's not. It's not. But my idea is you're incentivizing people to be a part of the system and find out what you're good at. You're actually incentivizing people to spend more time investing in yourself. You're investing in the society, right? You're trying to create a more healthy, prosperous, productive society. The idea is that as humanity becomes more advanced and our population grows, we share more ideas, we write more books, we learn how to do new things, and we get better and better at those things, and we also become more intelligent as a collective society.
Right.
And we start to do things better. We stop hurting each other. We start solving problems like hunger and eliminating poverty and even
Right.
fixing climate issues. So my thing is you want to create a society where everybody is participating, everybody's being productive, and everybody is trying to be more prosperous.
As long as they play by those rules.
Well, it's not. They don't have to.
Yeah,
You don't have to work. You could be just homeless and broke.
Which is the same system we have right now.
Yeah, but you could do that. But
The only difference we're talking about is you're just saying we're going to give people more money.
right, but the businesses don't have to take the burden. So we, number one, our money is worth way more, like exponentially more valuable.
If it's worth way more, we need less of it. So what
exactly.
I'm getting at
well,
is...
you don't need. You have the same amount of it now, and it would work the same way. You could still leverage the money the same way. So as soon as the money hits the bank, it's 10 times more valuable. Or as soon as it's loaned out, you still have loans. You still have all the system you have now.
Right.
It's just the money is way more valuable.
I've got to research this for sure because all I can think about is the South African currency where they're literally taking trash bags, literally.
No, that's
50-gallon trash bags
inflation,
full
though.
of
That's
money.
because they're taking the money that we have today. If we took the money we have today,
Yeah.
and we just made trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars,
Yeah.
we just broke it up into little pieces of what it is.
It becomes worthless.
It becomes worthless. That's
Yeah.
not what I'm saying. I'm saying you add value to what we already have.
Yeah.
You reevaluate the value of the currency. So suddenly, the dollar becomes
I'm just wondering,
way
like, if
more
the day
valuable.
you're born, if for the rest of your life you're guaranteed
you're not guaranteed anything.
three meals a day.
You're not guaranteed anything.
No, I'm saying, what if you?
Okay.
What if you know we don't?
Well,
want
see, because you're paying for it with the money we have today, we don't have the money. That's the problem with that.
No,
idea.
I agree. But what if we all agree that we don't think anybody should starve unless it was by choice?
We could create a cryptocurrency for that.
Yeah, but I'm saying if we all agree that we don't think somebody should starve by choice, meaning unless other than choice. Like if I want to starve myself, that's on me, right? If I want to fast for a year, that's fine. I could do that with my size. I could probably make it a year. But so the thing becomes without removing free will. And I think that's the challenge. Like, I don't know how it solves everything because humans still have free will and they still want to harm themselves.
I think you make a mistake if you just give it away.
No, I agree with that. I'm just saying.
I think you have to have some incentive. There should be some requirement and then some incentive.
Maybe the requirement is to get on the treadmill and to power the machine.
Maybe it's $50 an hour that you get.
I don't know,
Yeah,
it doesn't matter. It's arbitrary.
Getting hung up on the number, it's an arbitrary.
I'm just saying, how do you eliminate poverty and also encourage participation and
What is poverty?
Poverty is.
Are you trying to eliminate poverty? Because we're going to change the definition. We're trying to keep people from starving and have a roof over their heads.
It's like, what is a table?
Yeah,
But yeah,
true.
I think we all have to agree on a certain arbitrary floor.
Yeah.
Like, what is a decent, and not even poverty. We can eliminate living under a certain level of quality. Right? We have a certain standard. Like this should be the standard of living in our society. We want a healthy, productive society. So you want to have people that are happy about what they're doing, or they're happy to do, and then they're happy about what they're doing. So they're happy to do the entry level job,
Right.
while they can figure out what they really want to do, what they're really good at.
I love this conversation. It's so many
It's very nuanced. Yeah, I mean, there's
California.
It's
It
complex.
takes 10 years to build an apartment complex in California. And I hate to pick on California. It's not a political thing. It's a process.
Well,
thing,
California is so tied down in the bureaucracy, right?
Right, the bureaucracy. I'm not talking
Yeah.
about politically. I'm just saying, it takes 10 years
It's
to
politics
build,
that created
to build
the problem.
apartment complex. So imagine we're going to provide an income that people can afford housing, right? But we have bureaucracy in place, which has nothing to do with income, that prevents there from being adequate housing.
Well, California's not the only place to live.
No. I know, but I'm just saying, I'm giving you an example of an area that the average pay is much higher than here.
And that's a problem.
And what I'm getting at is money does not solve the problem.
But the problem is the bureaucracy there.
I agree.
But also you would actually incentivize people to spread out more too.
Another devil's
think
advocate.
about it this way.
Everybody has more money. Rent's going up.
Let me think about this. Think about this.
Cost of homes are going up.
Right, but then
is going up.
The base would be attainable by. I think this is what you're saying. The base is attainable by everyone, and then the frills are attainable with more effort and more involvement,
like anything else. But maybe you have a situation where you have. Maybe there's a something we could do.
So you want Medicaid or you want those things, those departments to be stripped and then renamed and reformed, and them just to provide
Eliminating
a better
bureaucracy, is that what we're talking about, Neil?
floor. And then create a higher floor.
Making bureaucracies more efficient, for sure.
Let's talk about the definition of poverty, just so when we go on. Poverty, the state of being extremely poor, and then there's the state of being inferior in quality or insufficient in amount, and then there is the renunciation of the right to individual ownership of property as part of a religious vow.
So imagine, so I guess this is where I struggle too, is that there are people that with intention don't own things.
Minimalists.
Yeah,
Right?
sure.
That does not mean they're poor.
And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with it.
No, I agree. But so I guess what you and I want and what other people want doesn't take into effect that not everybody wants the same thing, right? There are things that people want that don't require money.
Well, yeah, there could be somebody that just wants to live in a van.
So maybe we just need more public.
And maybe they donate all their money to some charity. Who
Yeah.
cares?
True.
That
Yeah.
doesn't matter. I think
Should we have more public access
think
to
the key
beaches and more public access to mountains? I mean, is that the way to?
Actually, I mean,
More public
honestly,
access
there's a problem with the government owning too much property.
Well, the fact that you can't
But you're gonna
really own property without
That's
the
a problem,
government's
too.
involvement is a
Yeah.
problem.
And I agree with you, but now I'm going to make another comment.
Please do. Let's go.
You're saying there's a problem with the government owning property, but what you're trying to do is create a system where you get to tell me how much I get to charge other people for
But
the property.
whoa, no, it's our money. We are. I mean,
I guess what? Then if you make $100 an hour, you know what I think? I think it's worth 4,000 hours for you to use my property.
well, that's
What I'm saying is that if you don't take away the control, free will for me to charge a set of price, then if you make more money, I just charge more
yeah.
money.
I see what you're saying. There's got to be a solution to that. That is a problem.
Which means
I
the
think about
government's
that
got to
too.
take it over. So this is the battle.
It's got to be something we all agree on, right? It's got to
No,
be.
it
something.
doesn't. It's my property. I can charge you $1 million.
When are we
So
all
how
gonna
do we
agree on
how do we
anything?
solve that?
That's the point. This is what I was trying to get at. Is like, if you make $100 an hour,
It's,
and
it's
which
solving
means you
the
make,
problem with greed, right?
Yeah. Well, so you make $4,000 a week, let's say, and then I go, okay. Well, the average vacation right now, the 2 weeks a year that somebody can take, if they take a vacation, takes them 6 months to save that money. Okay. Well, then I'm going to say, okay, well, instead of your vacation running you say $3,000 a year, now it's going to run you $300,000.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to let you use my property for less than $300,000.
How do we prevent artificial inflation?
That's not even inflation. That's me pricing based off
Or
you
price
have
gouging.
because you have a higher income.
Yeah. So
And again, supply and demand. There's only so much beachfront. There's
How do
only
you
so much
answer that
mountain
question?
front.
maybe you solve it with AI.
I don't know.
Maybe.
I'm not trying to intentionally disagree with you. I'm just saying.
No, I've thought
let's
about this.
really.
Yeah, I mean, you have to ask the questions if you want
how
the
do we
answers,
get
right?
there?
How do
Like,
we agree
That's
on?
been my issue with, whenever we talk about this is the thing I always get wrapped up in is how do we implement it? How do we implement it?
The land was free when we came to America. All you had to do was kill whoever was on it and take it, and it was yours.
Yeah.
It was free.
Yeah.
yeah.
Right now, I mean,
free to somebody.
No, I mean,
Big cost to someone else.
There's some level of what is that, cynicism? There's some level of whatever me being, but like,
What's a good example of how humans are evolving?
yeah, no, I agree. So I mean,
Yeah,
but
getting better.
if let's say that I own property that other people want to use, I get to set that price, right? It's a free market,
Yeah.
and I'm going to
And
base
people can
that-
refuse to rent it too.
You're exactly right.
That's maybe the hope is that if you have a society where people are more productive and they're doing well, they make better choices.
Yeah,
Poor people typically make shitty choices. And
like taking vacations when they can't.
Well, poor,
afford them.
poor
Yes.
people have
So
have shitty options. Yeah,
No, I mean,
less options.
This is it's such a new and forgive me. I'm more so what I'm doing is I'm challenging it,
no,
but in
you
a
have to
positive
ask
way.
these questions because they have to be
Yeah,
solved. They're
because-
problems.
I don't know. I can accomplish some of the things that I want. Like I'm making all these millions of dollars. I've done all this stuff, right? And then it dawned on me that actually many of the things I was fighting for I could have gotten for free. The key difference is that I can't restrict others from accessing that for free unless I own it. Right? So public access doesn't work for me because there are things that happen at public access that I don't want to subject my family to, which means I need to own a slice of it. Otherwise, I just use all this stuff for free. And Tony Robbins talks about this. He bought, was it Island in Fiji, remember? You should look this up. So anyway, there's this indigenous people of this island that he bought. And he's like, you guys must be, and they didn't even understand. They live in an island paradise that billionaires pay to travel to. and they just lived there, and they lived off the land. They lived for free. Like, there was no money. There is no construct. It wasn't until we came in and introduced this capital system that it became relevant, and they needed to earn money.
But it's a good thing because it creates innovation and incentive. Incentive is important, man. It's what causes innovation.
But hold on, though. Most people work their lives to obtain billions to go buy an island that these people have lived at for generation after generation after generation for free.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think we definitely should.
I'm not against capitalism. I'm just saying, like, it's a really interesting thing.
I think we definitely need to re-tie ourselves into nature as a society. Like, we need to. We've forgotten that we're a part of nature. I think it's probably happening, but
how?
I mean, just more.
There's this place
being
called Cheetahs.
more aware of things like global warming, of climate. You know, like how do we impact climate? And we really don't exactly know. We know that we're negatively impacting it, and it looks like it's going to be really bad for us. But also, we don't understand exponential growth of technology and how we'll solve these problems. I think the biggest way to solve the problems is to fix the society. You want to create a society that is healthy and prosperous, and then those people will inherently want to solve these problems and have a more efficient society.
It's communication, creating empathy, right?
Yes, it's likely that in the future we'll be able to feed millions of people with one animal, and the animal's not hurt. You know what I mean? Like we can be very efficient at what we do. We can probably eventually create fission power. You know, a grid that's powered by fission, and it's it's almost 100%
What is that?
efficient.
Fission?
Fission, yeah. So it's like the sun.
Oh, okay.
You know, like harnessing solar, but also creating fission here. And it's similar to nuclear. Nuclear power is actually really clean and it's pretty safe if it's done properly, and that's probably going to be a big thing too. But I'm just saying, creating a society that is.
I think we got to keep free will, and we need some way to incentivize people, and we need people to be the best version of themselves.
And
contribute.
Individual empowerment. Yeah, decentralized individual empowerment.
Yeah,
and I think, it's
Jesse. On a side note, how's homeownership treating you?
I like it. You know, it's kind of interesting when you kind of, in life, I've always been a renter, always pretty poor and stuff, but you get up little increments, and then there's new things that you're introduced to and new things that you have to take care of. All in all, though, I like it. Every once in a while, I forget that I'm a homeowner. And then I'm like, oh, yeah, I own that fucking wall. Okay, great. You know? So home ownership has been treating me well. It's helped me actually. I feel like I've been able to grow up more, become more adult, even though I'm almost 50, you know, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
I don't know that I believe in age, man.
Yeah, I don't
mean,
either.
not in the way that.
You know,
you're to me, you're like a teenager.
I feel like one.
No, I mean, think about it. It's like
yeah.
Your body's been alive for 50 years, but how do we track time?
Right.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
That's like David Sinclair said his aunt, I think his great aunt told him that the best age is 6 years old, and she always lived her life as a 6-year-old. She's like, everything should always be exciting and new.
I'm telling you, like we're like a room full of kindergarten kids right now. We've just learned to articulate our feelings better.
Right.
I mean, that really is it. Right?
Kind of true.
We're blessed and cursed with the art of communication.
Yeah.
Like the fact that we can communicate with each other, it solves a lot of problems, but it also brings up so many more questions that are just unanswerable.
On the face level, I don't think people should starve. I think everyone should have some level of opportunity. I damn sure don't think children should be abused. I think some adults deserve to have the shit knocked out of them. However, when that's done, I think they deserve a hand up and an opportunity to make things right and move forward. There's got to be...
Sounded very liberal right now.
Yeah, right. But there's a lot of things like you want to take yourself out, take yourself out. I don't think you should be able to take other people out unless, if one of them kills my kid in that moment, they're not going to make it. It's not going to happen.
Well, it all goes back to first do no harm.
Yeah, and I mean, and I would love to be the guy that can tell you that I could forgive that person in the moment. It's not going to happen.
But also, if you fix a lot of the problems in our society, a lot of those things go away automatically. There's always going to be a tiny percentage.
There's a lot of murder, rape, and crime happening in the country club.
But
Epstein's a perfect example of that. Like, I don't think that that's true. I think that
evil exists.
Proportionately, though, it's a small amount. Well, yeah, but I mean, there's.
The Catholic Church has been raping little boys for a long time.
Yeah, that's a cycle, though, right? It's a sickness. It's like a disease.
They didn't have a financial issue, though.
No, but it's like a disease. It's like power. Power is a disease. Power is like the absence of love.
So fixing the money problem doesn't solve those things overnight.
Well, it eliminates power in a lot of ways.
Eventually,
yeah. And so that's where.
You eliminate power around money, but not necessarily control.
The power around people. It's having money is not power. It's having control over other people's lives.
Influence
is power.
over others. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know. How do we solve all those?
I think the key is one of the biggest keys is empathy, right? Like it's.
I think so. That can be taught early on, right?
Yeah.
You attempt to do that.
Sure. Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Ideally.
But connectedness helps too, right? That we're all connected more.
The way you're raising your daughter is with these things in mind.
Yes.
Same way I raise my sons.
Well, that's a good point.
And so if we educate everyone, we have conversations like this, hopefully we are doing that work.
Sure.
It just takes a while.
That's the first step, right?
Having this conversation is part of it. But I think...
I don't think we can stop bad things from happening to people, although I really like bad things not to happen to good people.
We can heavily reduce them, though.
I agree.
And we already have.
Yeah.
I mean, 100 years ago, life was way worse than it is today.
I get myself caught up in this of the more moral than others. Like you put yourself in a position where you think that you know. And so my issue is, and this is like a touchy thing, but imagine a 13-year-old girl marrying a 30-year-old man. In America, that's a problem. This century. 150 years ago, it happened.
Well, we've gotten better.
No, I agree.
Well, now we understand that your brain hasn't even developed till you're 26.
But other countries, it's still going on.
Yeah, that's true.
And so the problem becomes we create laws.
That's more of a cultural thing too, but that's also something that naturally changes with it as
societies advance.
As societies advance, they're
but it takes time for those thought processes to age out.
It doesn't take that long. It could take one generation. It really is based on prosperity, right?
Yeah.
So if you could take a child out of one of those...
How long is a generation?
Well, think about it this way. If you took a child from one of those communities or another country and you raised that child, they're going to be raised in this culture with your standards.
So
they'll be completely different than people where they came from.
True. All right. So let's say that takes 20 years. And then for them to go through the matriculate and to go through the processes and to get into government to make meaningful impact, we're 30, 40 years. So what we're getting at, though, is that in that same 30, 40 years, if we just continue down the path we're going, you already said that 100,000 a week are coming out of poverty, which is 5.2 million a year, right? And then times 30 years, right?
That's a lot.
So, we're talking about, let's call it 200 million people are going to come out of poverty in the next 30 years.
And technology is exponential, so that's more than that.
So maybe we're already on...
Numbers exponential. So maybe in 10 years it's way better.
So maybe we're already on the path you described.
Yeah.
And
we are on the path. It's just, I mean, if we weren't on the path, we wouldn't be having the conversation.
Yeah.
Right.
Anyway, so
the stuff that we're talking about today, if we had this conversation 20 years ago,
witchcraft,
they'd say you're insane. Like you've lost your goddamn mind.
I mean, there are a lot of people who are going to say you're insane for having the conversation now.
Yeah.
But the number is fewer.
Actually, I tell everyone they can be a millionaire, and they think I'm stupid.
Yeah.
Literally, they think I have some type of ulterior motive.
Well, that's a mindset thing. It's a strange thing. And I'll be honest with you, a couple of years ago, if you'd have told me that, I'd be like, well, you know what the fuck you're talking about. Quite honestly, right?
Yeah.
And, it's when it's, I would be willing to bet that, 2 hours ago, one of the conversations we had was about, what was it, when you were talking about, when I asked you when you were in that struggling to feed your family, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think it's always going to be like this? There are a lot of people who do feel like the situation they are in is permanent and forever, and those are probably the people that you're talking about. They can't imagine that they could reach that level of success because it's so alien to them right now in the position that they are in. And that is where empathy comes from, right? Because you struggling to feed your children allows you to look at somebody who's struggling to feed their children and tell them that they're a millionaire, but they can't see your side of the fence because they haven't been there yet. You've been on both sides, right?
Yeah, or maybe they're not competent enough to get there.
Yeah, that's also possible.
I think everyone can get there. It's very difficult. But let me say this: there's this other thing that happens, and I'm not trying to be cold and callous. I think this is also where you should give someone an opportunity, even if they've messed up for 20 years. Mm-hmm. I think that at what point they say, okay, I'm waking up, I want to fix this, that they should have an opportunity to try and fix it.
Well, I know for a fact that you and I could probably fix some of the homeless situations in this country with the money they spend.
So I hate to pick on California.
They
but
commit
$5,000 a month per tent for their homeless community, like what the fuck?
Right.
You guys are kidding me. Like really $5,000 a month?
They budget $1 billion a year.
Dude, they could have sent those people to other states and paid for rent for like years in advance and just said, okay, we're going to pay for you a free place to live. Like that would have been better.
You could build a tiny home community with medical facilities on the
$60,000 a year
on the property.
And this is not to take a stab at California. I'm just saying like that didn't make any sense.
No, it's
and
corruption.
They knew it didn't make
it's
any
corruption.
sense.
It's a waste of resources.
So
bureaucracy. But
there are people right now that I'm with, is because of some of the businesses that we consult for, that make terrible decisions daily. And I'm okay with that because it's their right to make those decisions. And if I'm talking to them, I'm not judging them. I hang out with them. I'm around them. I'm in that environment. And these are the things that they want to do at that time. And a lot of these individuals, some of them are broken individuals. Some of them had a tremendous amount of trauma. And these are decisions they're making. This is how they cope, right? And that's okay. They make these decisions willingly and for extended period of time, many of them, years and years and years and years. But they're also the same individuals that many times want everything for free, right? And it's hard to convince that person in the mindset that they're in that if they changed what they were doing, they would change their outcome.
Well, so you have to. It has to start at a young age, right?
Yeah.
That's why when you change you restructure the society, the people that are already grown, you kind of have to. You got to kind of help them navigate it.
Yep.
And then you're really teaching the young generations, and also when we're talking about how with the system I would like to see in place, how do you prevent people from just raising everything up where it just ruins it, like raising all the prices and gouging everything. And I think the key to that is, one key is empathy, but we're also all so connected. A lot of it's just education, right? We're teaching each other.
Yeah.
You're teaching empathy and respect, and also good practices and ethical business, right?
Yeah. Well, some of that, but let me ask you this again, devil's advocate here. I have one. Let's say I had only one lake house or one beach house. Let's say I've got one, and both of you would like to rent it for July 4th, and the price is $10,000 or $5,000 or $100, whatever the number, right? Arbitrary number. You both want it. He's willing to pay twice the amount for it because he really wants it, and you don't have the ability to pay twice the amount.
Then he gets it. He makes more money than I do.
Right. And I didn't make a decision based on greed. I got an offer of twice the amount of money.
That's fine.
And I took it.
I think,
and then that happens to you for the rest of your life.
I think where it comes into a problem is it's like...
no, but every time
but then the thing he can afford is going to be better than...
I'm going to jump on Daniel's side on this thing.
I don't know, because now every time he goes to rent... There's another guy that's willing to pay more.
Well, that's why I'm going to jump on Daniel's side for this thing. Because I've had these same questions about this idea. Like, how do you prevent people from messing it up? You got this great thing, and everybody will surely try to fuck it up immediately.
I mean, we could say, yeah.
And so, how do you do that? Like, how do you prevent razors from becoming 100 times more expensive than they are today?
Yeah.
Or 1,000 times more expensive? Because you could just create the same problem again immediately.
Yeah. Which is what we do. We do that as a society right now.
We're doing it now. Yeah, paying too much for things.
So what's the solution?
Yeah. So maybe there's a. I don't like over-regulating things.
This is where I was getting at. I agree with you.
So because it's a slippery slope, and it could turn into a really bad thing. It could turn into tyranny, which is the worst.
The tulip craze.
So
What's that? Remember the tulip craze?
I know what you're talking about. I can't remember the.
What's the name?
I forget the name of it, but you're talking about when they sold too many flowers or whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the tulips, and basically the tulips became like there were people at the bottom that were taking everything they had and putting in tulips, and
Tulip mania.
tulip mania. So that's what we've got going on now. So let me tell you what. Here's my problem is. So I have nice things, and the markets went stupid, right? And so me being what I feel like making an intelligent decision, I sold everything. Like, because I don't need those things. And the people, many of the people that bought those things probably can't afford them. Right? And so, like, for me, at the end, it's like the bigger idiot theory. You think there's a bigger idiot that's willing to come along and pay you more for that thing. And that's the way I feel about a lot of things in life. And, like, when I think about crypto at its base, it's on the bigger, I think that it's actually called the bigger fool theory, but is at the time it serves no utility, it's based on hype, which means you're waiting on a bigger fool to come around and pay you more for it. And I think that the masses are investing in crypto based on that, not based on the utility that it offers.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
I think crypto is some of it actually has a use, but I think largely it's a metaphor for showing that everything is a social construct. Things are only valuable because of what we put value into them.
It's called the greater fool
Greater
theory.
fool theory.
In
That's it.
finance, the greater fool theory suggests that one could sometimes make money from buying overvalued assets whose price drastically exceeds its intrinsic value if they could later be sold at an even higher price.
Right. So I think a lot of America right now is guilty of this. And because I became aware of, I feel like, and I could be wrong, but I cashed out on a lot of these things, many of these things, right? And because at some point it flips.
Yeah.
And then just like you said earlier, all the billionaires will be villainized. All the major companies will be villainized. I'm going to be villainized because I made responsible decisions. And when everybody was going crazy, instead of me going out and buying 10 more Lamborghinis and this and that, I'm making very responsible conservative decisions. Actually, I'm actually flipping and I'm actually hoarding money. I'm hoarding cash. I'm preparing because I know at some point something bad is going to happen. And then I'm going to go off shopping when everything goes on sale. When everybody's losing everything, I'm going to go shop.
Yeah,
Trading
buy properties
position.
and stuff. Yeah.
Yes. And then fast forward 5 years and I'm going to be villainized for acquiring wealth. When the reality is a lot of people today are making terrible decisions, and yet in the future they're going to want to blame others for those decisions. And this is where this is where I struggle, because the information is there, because of technology. We gotta figure out how to educate people, but at the end of the day, it's still free will. I know people that are purposely self-destructing, and that's the decision they want to make. And if they wake up 10 years from now, and they change their mind, they should be able to change their mind, but they can't expect to take them changing
10 years of bad choices
and erase
Wipe
it
it out.
Yeah.
because
I still feel
the
like
rich are evil. Like I don't like that.
I still feel like that our system is currently designed to make it difficult to reach higher levels. I think it is structured to benefit the most elite. It's 100% structured to benefit the billionaires in the society. And the largest corporations.
What was the question you just
I
asked?
said, do you think it's the best system in the world, though? Like, do you think that people came here believe in the American dream? Why are people moving here from
I
other
think it's
countries?
definitely one of the best for innovation. It's got to be the most innovative.
More people
society.
migrate to this country than anywhere else in the world. Why are they doing that?
Listen.
I'm just asking.
I think we have a great country. I think we have a really great constitution. I think
So
we
are
have a
being
good
too
society.
Are we being too hard on ourselves?
We don't need to tear the thing down. We just need to repaint it.
Yeah. I'm just saying, if we
so-
have the best in the world, I think we should retool it. Yes, but if
Retool the society. That's all I'm saying.
We've got it better than
We
everybody
have-
else. We just have become accustomed.
I
to
think
it.
we have something really great that we need to improve. I think if we don't improve it, it could really implode on us.
Yeah.
And also another big concern I have is that with the exponential growth of technology, things will change so drastically over the next 10, 20 years that you're going to have so much of our society will be automated. And so if we don't make drastic changes today, we may end up with a society where nobody does anything and we're all just consumers.
Yeah. Well, we definitely have a society of consumers already.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, but it could be on a level of what's the term? It could be very dystopian.
Oh yeah.
You know.
This has been really interesting, though.
Okay.
Been really interesting.
Gotta wrap it up.
I'm like, it's a rabbit hole.
Yeah, we'll dive
We
back
need to-
into this
we need to
rabbit
do
hole
this
a
again.
bunch. I mean, this,
Yeah.
it's a good conversation. I had a list of topics I wanted to talk about. We got to none of them, including Taylor Swift. But all of this.
Boy,
shit,
Taylor. Taylor is going to get sued, I think. Somebody correct me on this, please. If you know, put it in the comments.
What?
Somebody reach out.
Let's talk about this for sure. Let's
On
do
the next
this
one.
again with just you guys.
I wanna
'cause
talk about
I have
Taylor.
a list of stuff.
There's a whole business thing we're going to talk about.
Yes.
There's something brewing. I want to be able to say I told you so. So I want to do it on camera. That way, a year from now, I can be like, I knew it.
I'm into it.
I did want to say one thing that
Let's
I
go.
said in a previous episode. I want to clarify
Yep.
what I meant by that. I made a comment about how our criminal justice system is a broken bureaucracy. It gets rewarded for imprisoning people, and we have more people. I'm pretty sure we have more people in prison in the U.S. than China does, which
Probably.
is insane. And my point is that no matter what the machine is, if it's doing a good job at what it does, it gets rewarded for it. And sometimes we have to be aware of what the machine's doing and retool the machine for something that positively impacts society.
Yeah.
But I wanted to be clear. Like, I support police and military, and those people have incredibly difficult jobs. I would hate to have those jobs, either one of those jobs, and I'm thankful that people do those things. My problem is with the bureaucracies that they work for.
Yeah.
And I think that the bureaucracies there's a lot of corruption in those bureaucracies, and we need to retool those
And
machines.
let's stop arresting people for marijuana. And if you're in prison for marijuana related
Any
stuff,
drugs.
let's get them out.
Drugs,
Yeah.
drug war is
Let's do all
nonsense.
that.
Yeah.
Let's. I'm
we'll wrap
going
it
to
up
make
there.
a note of that.
Yeah.
And let's fucking dive into that
100%.
on the next episode.
Taylor, I'm
All right.
A
coming
very
for
special
you.
episode,
I'm coming
Bureaucracy
for you.
Machine and Taylor Swift.
Yes. Well, hey, everybody. Hope you enjoyed the episode. Be sure to like and subscribe. We really appreciate your support, and we'll see you
Yep.
next time.
Later, guys.
See ya.
Bye.
Turn on those fucking notifications. Thanks, fellas.
It's a
Well,
way
I
that they-
respect and admire Taylor Swift.
Me too.
Yeah. We got to come back to this Taylor Swift thing real quick in a second. But,
Before we get too far, too.
Taylor Swift?
Not yet.
Oh, okay.
We'll put a pin in the Taylor Swift. It's a good conversation. I had a list of topics I wanted to talk about. We got to none of them, including Taylor Swift. But all of this
Boy,
shit.
Taylor. Taylor is going to get sued, I think. Somebody correct me on this, please. If you know, put it in the comments.
What?
Somebody reach out.
Let's talk about this for sure. Let's
On
do
the next
this
one.
again with just you guys.
I wanna
'cause
talk about
I have
Taylor.
a list of stuff.
There's a whole business thing we're going to talk about.
Yes.
There's something brewing. I want to be able to say I told you so. So I want to do it on camera. That way, a year from now, I can be like, I knew it. 100%.
On the next episode.
Taylor, I'm
a
coming
very
for
special
you.
episode,
I'm coming
Bureaucracy
for you.
Machine and Taylor Swift.